On today's episode of the Mark Titus Show, Rick Pitino is officially back in high major college basketball, signing a 6-year contract with St. John's. You know it's official because he had his press conference today on Thursday. And John Fanta was asking him questions after the press conference, and I watched those videos. And by the way, Rick Pitino said, I watched the Fanta video. He asked Rick, why now? Why would you do this, Rick? And Rick Pitino says, well, for starters, I didn't have to move houses. I could stay in my exact same house. When John Fanta was sitting in that seat, I said, John, he's going to St. John's because he's not going to have to move houses. John Fanta said, you're crazy. Who's crazy now, John? Certainly not me. Anyway, Rick Pitino is officially back, and it makes me feel some things because how could it not? Also, Ed Cooley has positioned himself as public enemy number 1 in Providence, taking the Georgetown job that I did not think he would take. I thought this was all smoke and mirrors. I thought we've kind of seen this story from Ed Cooley before. We've seen him flirt with the Michigan job. He always seems to use other jobs as leverage to get more money, which is, I've never had a problem with it. That's welcome to America, baby. So this time around, I thought, yeah, we've seen this before from Cooley. Surely he's not going to jump to Georgetown, but he did, and now people are hot about it, mostly because it's in conference, if we're being honest. If Georgetown was not in the Big East, I don't know if Providence fans would care that much. They're going to tell you it's not that he did it, it's how he did it. Maybe they're right. They certainly know the specifics more than I do. But ultimately, it's like the guy got a ton more money, and he's going to probably a better program. Sorry to say Providence. Georgetown is a better program. And yeah, why now? I don't know. Leave it up to him to say that. But I was confused. Not confused. I was surprised. I was surprised when he did it. It felt like when he declined the Michigan offer, he was going to ride it out at Providence, and I guess that's why Providence fans are so hurt by it, because they were told that he would stick around forever. But again, that's America, baby. That's how this country works. Anyway, a lot of coaching carousel stuff going on. So I brought in the man who's more in tune with this stuff than anyone, or at least that's what he wants you to believe. Jon Rothstein, good friend of mine, a man who was once thought of as a robot on Twitter. I got to know as a real human being who's just basically a robot in real life as well. But at least sometimes he'll just ask, like, how's the family? And I'm like, yeah, that's nice. That's like a real person. So John and I have gotten pretty close, and he's coming on the show to talk about all the things going on in the coaching carousel. The son of a bitch comes on. We had a great interview with him. He comes on, and he is literally breaking the Tobin Anderson news to Iona on our show. So if you're watching this on YouTube, watch John and see if you can tell as he's texting and he's answering my questions. And I literally asked him specifically about Tobin Anderson, and he's probably texting Iona or Tobin. I don't know who he's texting, but the son of a bitch broke the story while he's recording the show. And I asked him about Tobin Anderson, and he kind of was dismissive about it. And then we get out of the interview, and I see that he tweeted that Tobin Anderson's going to Iona. So I don't know. I feel somehow swindled by all that, TJ.
He did break some news on our show, though.
He did break some news. So he did not give us that scoop. He did give us another scoop. I'll tease it and say no more. You'll have to listen and hear what that scoop is. Also on the show, I'm going to do a Sweet 16 reset. I got 3 big thoughts I want to open the show with as I think about this Sweet 16 and getting fired up. And we've had some time to take a deep breath from the opening weekend and look at the 16 teams we have in front of us. So I got 3 big thoughts. I'm also going to do at the end of the show my expectation tiers. A lot of people are doing their power rankings right now. Power rank the top 16 teams. I used to, in a former life, be a power ranking guy. I am finding that people, when you do the power rankings of the Sweet 16, people get hot about it. They do not like it. Like if you're a fan of say, a Florida Atlantic and you're fired up that your team's in the Sweet 16, and then someone puts out a graphic that says you're 15 out of 16, you get upset about it, and people get hot. So I'm not going to do power rankings. I'm going to do my tiers, which is basically the exact same thing, except we call it something different. So the tiers are coming up. Jon Rothstein coming up. Let's get to it. All right, fun show coming up. A little housekeeping, TJ. A couple questions for you from people that are blowing me up in the DMs, in the email, and the text messages. Number one, what is going on with their intro music? People want to know. I'm told that I still have not ever listened back to a show. I still have no idea what the intro music is. I don't know how it's presented. Are we doing someone said why are you playing music over top of me talking?
So as you like get to that "let's go" part,
Yeah,
it sort of
starts
comes up,
it comes up,
and then there's like the little wipe, and then it fades down.
Okay.
I could change it.
I don't know. People are asking me. I don't know.
I can change it.
Well, people are asking me, and I was like, I should listen to it so I have some sort of reference. But then I thought I don't want to listen to it because I don't want to listen to our theme music until we obtain the rights to Rock America.
Right.
So I'm out of protest. So I'm not going to listen to it. But at the same time, people are asking me, and I feel like I need to address it. So there you go. I'm just addressing it. All right. It's addressed. Ask TJ, honestly, if you have any issues with that. The other thing I'm getting blown up about is our junior editor situation.
Yeah.
Where are we with that?
We're in the interview stage. I think I've done 2 interviews so far. So that'll be a pretty quick process. So like if you haven't submitted stuff for that, do it because you're running out of time.
Okay. Because people keep asking me like, will you hire me? And I'm like, I don't think I can.
Send them to me if they have questions.
Send it. So basically, if you have a question about anything, just send it to TJ.
Yeah.
And stop bothering me.
If you're listening to this and you don't know what we're talking about, if you know how to clip a ton of stuff from a podcast in the basically overnight.
Yeah.
And you want to move to Chicago.
And you want to move to Chicago and you want to hang with us and you're a fun hang. I mean, that's important. Yeah. That is important, TJ. Don't get I don't care how proficient you are. If you're a dork. But you could be a dork. If you just got to be like a fun dork.
Chill dork.
A chill dork.
a chill hang ass dude.
If you're someone like that, apply for the job. There you go. So we're gonna move on it quickly, I guess. Yeah. Are we turning it like do I have any say in this?
Sure.
Do I want any say in this? Probably not.
You will have minimal contact with this person probably.
Oh, is that gonna get people to not want to be apply?
Titus will come to your house and hang out with you once.
One time a year, I will. When we're in Chicago, I will go to one Cubs game a year with you.
Yes.
If you get the job, if you want it. If you don't want it, then we don't have to do it. If you're not a Cubs fan, if you're a Sox fan, I will not go to the game with you. It's one Cubs game at Wrigley Field. That's it. That's all you get. I don't have to learn your name either. I'm not promising that. You're gonna be dude or man. That's it. No, I'm kidding. We can move on. So I got 3 big thoughts going into the Sweet 16. These are 3 things that just broad, well, some more broad than others, but here are 3 things that stand out to me about this Sweet 16. Number 1, we are likely getting a new champion for the 3rd time in the last 4 tournaments. And I this is something that I get a little Jake Marsh about, where I just like obsess over these little things. Like I'm not as bad as he is, or good as he is, depending on your point of view. With oddities like a wedgie and that sort of thing. But one thing I do love about the tournament, one thing I'm always like tracking, is first time champions, because I think the sport it demonstrates the sport like being in not only like a healthy place, but like it makes it more fun for the rest of the country if in fact we have new champions that come up and sit at the table, because then those fan bases, you have a fan base for life at that point. So like if you're a Virginia fan and Tony Bennett comes along and wins a title in 2019, those people that went on that ride will now love college basketball forever, when maybe before Tony Bennett arrived, they were only football people. So I think when programs win national championships for the first time, it is an awesome thing for the sport. And from 2006 to 2019, for that 13-year stretch, we had nothing but repeat champions. Every single champion that we had, every national champion we had was a team or a program that had won before. And then Virginia wins in 2019. Baylor, we have COVID obviously in 20. Baylor wins in 21. Kansas wins it last year, which isn't the first time. But those we had Virginia and Baylor earn their seats at the table in 19 and 21. And as I'm looking at the bracket now, it's looking likely. Now, I don't want to get ahead of myself. If you're one of the fans of these schools that have won before, Arkansas, UConn, UCLA, Michigan State, those are the 4 that have won before. I'm not saying you're not going to win. I'm just saying it's trending that way, because Arkansas, UConn, and UCLA are all in the same region. So only one of those teams is getting to the Final Four. If that, maybe Gonzaga comes out of the region, none of them make it. So we start there, that it's going to quickly get eliminated to where at most only one of those teams is coming out of the West. Then you have Michigan State as the other team that's in the East. As a 7 seed, I think Michigan State fans are feeling good about themselves. I think certainly the Spartans are in a great spot to continue this run and get to the Final Four. I think we are at the point now where you do throw out the seeding, even though they're going to be playing a 3 seed and then maybe a 4 seed to get all the way to Houston. I Michigan State, if you want to make the argument that they should be the favorite coming out of the East, be my guest. But as it stands right now, of the top 8 teams, of the betting favorites, this was I pulled this from the Barstool Sportsbook before we came in. So I don't know where the odds are at now, but this is Tuesday afternoon. This is where we sit. The top 8 teams, 6 of the top 8 have never won the title. You got Alabama and Houston at plus 350. You got UCLA at plus 700, who's obviously won a title. Tennessee at plus 800, Gonzaga plus 900, then UConn, who's obviously won a title, Creighton and Texas at plus 1,000. So Alabama and Houston are heavy favorites, heavy-ish favorites. They're pretty clearly favorites. They're the 1 and the 2 right now. UCLA could break up the party. They could win a national title. This is not me saying that none of these teams that have won before are going to win before. It's just when you look at it, the top half of the contenders, you only have 2 of them that have ever won a title before, according to Vegas, and I find that fascinating. So that's one thing that stands out to me. We are probably going to get a new national champion. Maybe not though. I don't know. So that's ultimately, I guess, not a great conclusion to draw. To say this could happen or it couldn't. TJ, that's basically the point I just made. I think
Princeton.
Maybe Princeton wins it all. I don't know. We'll see. Quick break to talk about our friends at Rhoback Activewear. It's the best time of the year, and there's no better way to spend it than with Rhoback. That first weekend of the college basketball tournament may be the best weekend in all of sports, and it isn't the same without Rhoback. Rhoback's performance hoodies are the softest, stretchiest hoodies in the game. They're moisture wicking too, so when you're sweating out that bet or bracket buster, Rhoback's hoodies will get you through. Their performance Q-zips are the definition of versatile, perfect to rock in an arena or on your couch, and Rhoback's performance joggers are made from March. They're flexible, allowing for easy movement and celebrations when that buzzer beater falls. Rhoback has been gaining traction big time after partnering with stars Armando Bacot and Kihei Clark. These guys are on a roll. So use code Titus at Rhoback.com for 20% off your first purchase. That's RHOBACK.com for 20% off all hoodies, Q-zips, polos, and joggers with code Titus. I love Rhoback so much. I can't even count anymore. I used to know the number of hoodies I have and polos and all and Q-zips. Don't even know anymore. There's nothing better than walking into the closet, just grabbing a Rhoback hoodie, throwing it on, and knowing that I have not only the most comfortable clothes for the day, but I have something that'll be great for any occasion. Go do it now. Rhoback.com, promo code Titus. Another thing that stood out to me, this has developed into a not NBA draft tournament. This is not a, and what do I mean by that? I mean this. Last year, 2022 Sweet 16, you had Paolo Banchero, you had Chet Holmgren, you had Jaden Ivey, you had Benedict Mathurin all playing in the Sweet 16. All of those teams were all those guys' teams made it to the Sweet 16. They were all taken in the top 6 of the draft. I think Keegan Murray and who else was top 6 that I'm not remembering. I forget who else was top 6. Oh, Jabari Smith, number 2. Duh, Jabari Smith. Those 2 did not make it. Obviously, the Sweet 16 were upset. Keegan Murray in the first round, Jabari Smith second round. But there was once the Sweet 16 was set, you had heavy hitters in terms of NBA talent. That doesn't even include the Paolo Banchero's teammates on Duke, all those Duke guys, Mark Williams, AJ Griffin, Wendell Moore. Arizona had Dalen Terry, I think, was taken first round. Christian Coloco, I can't remember where he went, but he was trending first round. I can't remember what ended up happening to him, but he was a guy that was highly thought of. You had Kansas with Agbaji and Christian Brown, who ultimately won the title, obviously. So last year you had just, if you were a fan of the NBA, you could turn on the Sweet 16 and you were watching all these guys that are going to make up the draft class of 2022, or certainly the first round. Right now, and I'm not a mock draft guy, so this is not my mock. I'm just I'm a guy who reads the tea leaves. I'm a guy who reads feels which way the wind's blowing, all that sort of thing, and then does my best to make sense of it. Right now in the Sweet 16, we got Brandon Miller and Noah Clowney on Alabama, who could be. Brandon Miller's definitely gonna be a first round guy. He might go number 2, depending on how people feel about him. But he's playing like a guy that's gonna go number 2 behind Wayne Benyama. Noah Clowney will probably be a first round guy. You have Arkansas with Anthony Black and Nick Smith, who I think their draft stocks are all over the place, but they will be first-round picks. It depends on who you're talking to and, again, how the workout processes go, all that sort of thing. But they are two guys that if you're an NBA person, you're locked in on those two guys at Arkansas. Jarris Walker at Houston could go top 5. He's gonna be a very high draft pick. Outside of that, I don't know how many first rounders we have. Like Colby Jones, maybe at Xavier. The UConn guys, Andre Jackson, Jordan Hawkins, they could show something from here and play their way into the first round. Maybe they're already there. Again, I don't. This is just me trying to like get a sense of like where people have guys in their mock drafts, all that sort of thing. Point is, we have a lot of like really good college players, but can't miss NBA players. You think about like Gonzaga, led by Drew Timme, and Julian Strawther could be a guy. He's going to play in the NBA. Where he gets drafted, I don't know. These next couple weeks could go a long way in determining that. But you don't look at this Gonzaga team and say they're littered with NBA players and they're littered with first-round draft picks. Same thing with UCLA. Like, to a man, you go down that roster and you're like, all these guys can play, man. All these guys are really, really good. But is Jaime Jaquez, is Tiger Campbell, is David Singleton, is I guess like are any of these guys like desired by the NBA? We will see. Bona, Bailey, Jalen Clark, who's hurt obviously now. All those, there's definitely interest. I'm not saying they're not going to get drafted. It's just like these are not guys that I think are surefire lottery guys. UConn guys I already talked about. Texas is a great example. They have great guard play. They play great defense. Great college basketball team. Their guards are all like 30 years old though, and I don't know. I don't know how high they're going to get drafted. Creighton, same sort of deal where it's like, don't mean to diminish the talent on the floor when you watch Creighton play. I don't know how many of these guys are first round NBA picks. So that's something that stood out to me. Tennessee, Kansas State, Michigan State, like, you just go down the line. There's not a ton of can't miss NBA draft prospects. Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? Depends on your perspective. Some people get bored by that. If you're an NBA hole, you're like, give me some juicy individual talent. If you're more of a purist like my father probably is, that says get rid of the 3-point line, get rid of the shot clock, get rid of all that garbage, that one-on-one basketball. Maybe you love looking up with the Sweet 16 and saying, finally, we just have good teams and not teams with good players, if that makes sense. So that's one thing that stood out to me. All right, everybody, this is a public service announcement. Manscaped now has beard products and a brand new nose and ear hair trimmer. The leaders in below-the-waist grooming are traveling north of your South Pole with their revolutionary Beard Hedger Pro Kit. Plus, they've now launched the brand new Weed Whacker 2.0, which confirms they have all the best tools for your hygiene toolbox. The Beard Hedger Pro Kit is the ultimate package that makes it easier than ever to craft your signature look. It all starts with the Beard Hedger. This thing is an elite beard trimmer. The Beard Hedger is tough on hair but smooth on your face, leading to single stroke efficiency that brings satisfaction one stroke at a time. The Pro Kit also includes Manscaped's beard shampoo and conditioner, beard oil, and beard balm to moisturize, style, and shimmer your new beard. Plus, the kit has 3 free gifts: a beard brush, comb, and scissors. With a nice beard, your face is perfectly groomed, right? Wrong. You need to keep an eye out for those tough-to-trim ear and nose hairs. That's why the brand new Weed Whacker 2.0 offers improved blades and skin-safe technology with a no-tugging guarantee. It's never been so painless to mind your manholes. So go get 20% off and free shipping with code Titus at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com. Use code Titus. Go get your hygiene in order. I know a lot of you listening and watching, you are lazy, frankly, and you like to grow out your facial hair because you don't want to deal with it. Nobody in your life wants that. They want you to get your stuff in order. They want you to be presentable. Take pride in what you look like. Go use Manscaped. Always use the right tools for the job with Manscaped. Promo code Titus, manscaped.com. Get your life together. Go do it now. Finally, my last thought going into this thing, I wanted to say something about Tom Izzo, who is Mr. March. Tom Izzo is Mr. March until further notice. And Michigan State, how do I say it, is like the one exception to the Big Ten rule. Like they're the one. It feels like we need to revisit this or like really emphasize this because it felt like Tom Izzo goes in 2019. He goes to the Final Four. They lose to Texas Tech. Maybe they should have beat him. I don't know. But they beat Duke, the Zion Williamson, R.J. Barrett, Cam Reddish Duke team in the Elite Eight. Go to the Final Four. lose to Texas Tech. Now, since that time, in 2020, there was no tournament. Michigan State was in position. Michigan State fans will tell you they were going to march to the title. Kansas fans will tell you they were going to march to the title. Dayton fans will tell you they were going to march to the title. As it turns out, a lot of teams are going to win the title in 2020, but Michigan State was certainly in the mix. Since that has happened, in 2021, Michigan State loses in the first four to UCLA, I believe it was, in Mackey Arena. I think that started the UCLA run, did it not? Yeah, it did, didn't it? I have that right. Now I'm second guessing myself when I know I'm right, but I'm still going to look it up anyway. They lost to UCLA. Yeah. Why would I second guess myself? I know ball. In 2021, they lose to UCLA in a first four game. In 2022, they lose in the second round to Duke in a game that felt like going in, at least this is how I felt, and looking back on it, I felt like this was the sense that America had, was like, this is that Duke team. It was they were a 2 seed. Michigan State was a 7 seed. And going into the second round game last year, it felt like this was the time for Tom Izzo to announce that he is, like, it was all setting up to this, that he's going against Coach K in his final season. He's going against a loaded Duke team, but a young Duke team. It had all the makings of like the 2019 matchup. If Tom Izzo is in fact Mr. March, he will beat this Duke team. He will end Coach K's career, and that will be that. He does not. Michigan State comes up a little short. They gave him a good game, but it wasn't good enough. And it feels like people came out of that last year's tournament saying he's like, not that he's washed up and done, but like there was this idea that Tom Izzo is obviously not Mr. March, because if he was, he would have been the one to end Coach K. So we're coming into this season. Michigan State's been up and down all year. It's been frustrating at times for Spartans fans. They have the talent. They show flashes. They have the guard play, but at the same time, they can't quite seem to pull it all together. They go into the Big Ten tournament. They lose to an Ohio State team that is probably better than the record indicated and the 13 seed in the Big Ten tournament indicated. But at the same time, you lose to a 13 seed in the Big Ten tournament, and you're coming to this NCAA tournament thinking, is it over? Like, is Tom Izzo, has he lost his way? You know, and along the way between like in these last 3 years, between when he had it and when maybe he didn't, you got like these instances of Aaron Henry, who everybody remembers that, where he's yelling at Aaron Henry and like grabbing him and, you know, shaking him and getting into fights with his own players. And I think it was Gabe Brown in 2021 in the play-in game. There's a dust up with him, and like there's this narrative forming that like Tom Izzo has maybe lost his step, or Tom Izzo, you know, as all these other older coaches are retiring and stepping away from the game, and you got guys like Roy Williams that are hinting at like the game has passed me by, and I don't know if I can handle this transfer portal era and like what it takes to recruit in this era. And Tom Izzo's losing out. He gets Amani Bates to commit, and then Amani Bates takes the bag and goes somewhere else. And there's just like this storm brewing around Tom Izzo that's like, man, is this guy, are we seeing the last of him right in front of our very eyes? We're not. We never were. I was part of it. I was part of like I remember when Amani Bates went to Memphis, I thought Tom Izzo might retire on the spot. This might break the man. This might, like, he's very anti-transfers. He's very like he's just not that way. The idea that a kid could commit to Michigan State, say this is where I want to be. I remember Amani Bates like talked about loyalty and his commitment to Michigan State, and then he immediately like goes back on that in Tom Izzo's eyes. I thought that might break him and he might be done. And I guess like my ultimate point of what I want to say is that this man has always been Mr. March. Like, I don't know. I apologize to the Izzo family. I apologize, you know, for whatever part I played in this, but I don't know how the media got to a point where we were like kind of casting him aside as though he had lost it. When he hasn't. And I don't know if like the Big Ten stinking like factored into that. I don't know what's going on. The Big Ten does stink. I will say that. Like the Big Ten, TJ and I are both Big Ten guys. I will probably be, in terms of like national basketball media, I like to think I'm close to the top of being a Big Ten apologist. Andy Katz is at the top. We know that. He is the top dog in terms of defending the Big Ten. I will come close to that. But I'm also a realist, and I'll acknowledge reality when it's in front of me. I do think some of the national title stuff with the Big Ten is overblown. When you talk about the Big Ten having not won a title since 2000, there've been 7 runner-ups since then. There's been 6 different programs that have gotten there. It ultimately comes down to like a coin flip more often than not in the title game, and you know, I think like it's a fair thing to say. It's not a fair thing to say like the conference stinks because they haven't won a national title, because at that point you're just not paying attention to like how many programs are getting right there. And unfortunately, I guess we live, TJ, in a world where if you don't win the title, nothing else matters. But to me, that's like kind of stupid because, you know, so I think that stuff's overblown. I don't know.
Big Ten cannibalism. We're not all bad. We're all too good for each other.
We're all too good for each other. Could be that. I do think that, yeah, like if Wisconsin was 5 minutes away from beating Duke in 2015, if they close that out, people think about the Big Ten totally differently, and they shouldn't. It's the same exact team and the same exact talent. You replay those 5 minutes a million times. There's a bunch of different timelines where Wisconsin wins. Some of them they lose, and the one, you know, they lost. That's how it goes. I get it, but like, I think the national title stuff is way overblown. I don't think that's a very strong point in trying to point out that the Big Ten stinks. The last couple years, though, the Big Ten has stunk in this tournament. There's no defending it. I mean, it's been very, very bad. Why is this happening? The recruiting has not been great, I don't think. I think like through when you look at like the last like 10, 15, 20, like basically since the title drought started, you look at the recruiting in the Big Ten and stack it up with like the rest of the country, or like with some of these with the elite programs. There's no real program that is on that level of recruiting, with the exception of Thad Mott at Ohio State had a run there where he was getting 5 stars. Izzo has had his moments. Juwan Howard is doing well now, but outside of that, like the Big Ten is not producing 5-star guys over and over and over. And ultimately in March, I think, as it turns out, you need talent to win these games. So I think it's that. I think it's style of play. I think that the big men, one of the problems with the Big Ten is that every single school, and this is going to sound stupid, but every single school badly wants to win the conference championship. And that is a very important thing to every school, that they want to win the Big Ten championship in the regular season. And I think the way that the conference has gone, having a great big man is very important if you want to win the conference championship. Like that becomes like a vital piece of like what you need. And you just look back on like recent years, like Zach Edey won obviously this year, Purdue. Kofi Coburn at Illinois, he won the Big Ten. Hunter Dickinson in Michigan won it a couple years ago. Jalen Smith was a big man for Maryland not too long ago. I mean, like down the line, it's not true of every single team, but by and large, like if you want to win a Big Ten title, you probably need a pretty good big man. Yep. In the NCAA tournament, it's the exact opposite. You need great guard play. You need guards that can create something out of nothing. If you're playing through your big man, you're probably not going to go very far. There are exceptions again. I'm not saying that this is true of every single team, but by and large, that's how you win in March. And that brings me back to Izzo, who I think is one of, if not the only coach in the Big Ten who consistently views his conference schedule, his non-conference schedule, everything he's doing as a lead up to March. That's how he views the schedule. That's why he is willing to have his team get their ass kicked in the non-conference. He'll start out the season playing Duke and Kansas and Kentucky and Gonzaga on an aircraft carrier. He'll play anybody anywhere, and it's not because he's saying, I think our team is better than yours and we're going to go out and beat you. It's the exact opposite. This man's addicted to losing. I think he loves losing more than he loves winning. I think there's nothing that makes Tom Izzo happier than being angry. When his team plays like shit and he can be angry and he can bust out the football pads and practice with his guys, he loves it. So I think the way he approaches a season is fundamentally different than every other coach in the Big Ten. I think the way he constructs his roster and the way he constructs his team, he has his focus on March. And what I mean by that is you look at like this Michigan State team, so guard heavy. The question marks coming in for Michigan State this year, and the reasons they were not highly thought of, and the reasons they ultimately didn't compete for a Big Ten championship was because of the big man. Like Matty Sissoko out of the gate was awesome for them against Gonzaga, and I forget who else they played early. Maybe it was Kentucky in the Champions Classic. I thought he was great out of the start, but then he wasn't elite. He's not an elite big man, and you wonder, is that like what ultimately kept Michigan State from competing for a Big Ten? I don't know. There's more factors to it than that. But because they're so reliant on Jaden Akins and AJ Hoggard and Tyson Walker, like you get to March, suddenly you just turn you give the guy the ball to these guys and let them cook. Michigan State hasn't even shot well, by the way, in this tournament, which is crazy to me. So I think Tom Izzo is the one coach who does not go into every season saying our goal is to win the Big Ten regular season championship. His goal is to get ready for March, and if along the way they win a Big Ten championship, that's awesome. And I don't think he's like not trying to win the Big Ten. I think he's like, I see the bigger picture, and if we pick up these W's along the way, that's cool too.
Why do you think it is that the build to win Big Ten games is around a center and the rest of the country plays around guards? Like, what's the difference? Why is the Big Ten? I think
it's style. This is just my gut. This is like I have no data to back this up, but that's what this show's about, baby. I think it's a part of the country that is resistant to change, and you have fan bases that like the Big Ten's isn't it the oldest conference in the country, and if it's not, it's one of, I mean, it's like the OG conference of college sports. So you have like it takes so long to change styles that I think what happens is you become a coach in the Big Ten, you can't afford to take you can't be like Tobin Anderson with your approach. You can't come out and just be like, we're going to just run chaos defense and try to, because then if you start losing games, you look like it'd be like a football coach going for 2 every time. Like that's the same sort of thing. That like if you go for 2 every single time you score a touchdown and you're not getting it, people are like, this guy's a bozo. He doesn't know. He's a terrible coach. Get him out of here. You never punt. That's basically what it is. I don't think programs want to take big risks. So you just kind of like fall into what you've done before. And as basketball has evolved to where guards are dominating the game, the Big Ten is just kind of stuck. Like, I don't think the coaches of the Big Ten are in a position. They don't have the cachet that Izzo does to like Izzo could go 500 in the league and still like have the trust of his fan base. Whereas
a new coach comes in.
Yes.
That makes sense.
I think that's what happens. And however we get here, I do think that Izzo is uniquely positioned as like the guy who sees the bigger picture, which is why I don't think any of this stuff is an accident. When he gets to March, he overperforms. And I don't know why along the line we kind of like, maybe we didn't. Maybe it was just me. Maybe I'm projecting. I don't know what, but like it did feel like there was a sense there where like Tom Izzo is maybe not Mr. March anymore, and people were trying to take the label from him and find who deserves the label now. And I think that game against Marquette is just a great example of like what I mean. This whole season is like nobody takes a team. I'll say this about Tom Izzo. He is maybe the one coach in the country that what you see out of his team, is the top potential that they have. That this is the best this is the best version of this team. And that's ultimately why he's so successful in March, is because they're always peaking at the right time. There have been exceptions. He lost to a 15 seed. I understand that. There are black marks along the way. Everybody gets tripped up. But looking back on 25 straight tournaments, what were the stats that everyone's throwing out? 25 straight tournaments, 15 Sweet 16s, 8 Final Fours. He has 16 upsets where he was the lower seed and beat the higher seed in the tournament, which is a record. I think he passed Boeheim, who it took 47 years for Boeheim to do it. or that was his career. Izzo's been coaching for like 27, 28 years, I think. And he's got 16 upsets. So I guess like as we go into the Sweet 16, I wanted to say that about Tom Izzo, that was like a cool takeaway. And like I think he was crying after he beat Marquette. And
it's amazing how fast he turns off the Izzo switch.
Yeah, I know. And he's a guy that he's only had a 1 or a 2 seed 6 times out of these 25 tournaments he's been to. When he has a 1 or a 2 seed, he's gone to 4 Final Fours out of the 6. I brought up the loss to Middle Tennessee. That was bad. I'm not saying it wasn't. And then he lost in 2012 to Louisville in the Sweet 16. Other than that, you give this man a 1 or a 2 seed, like a top caliber team, he goes to the Final Four. That's what he does. You give him a 7 seed, he'll go to the Final Four. You give him a 5 seed, he'll go to the Final Four. And he's only won 1 title. I think that's what's keeping him going. I think he's in a position now where he's saying to himself, I need the second one. The second one separates you from everyone else. If he coached his last game, if he going into the Sweet 16 for some reason, he decided to retire tomorrow and he's like, I don't even want to coach the rest of this year, he will go down as probably the greatest coach in the Big Ten. Bob Knight fans would argue otherwise. Don't tell Dad, sorry. Hope you're not listening. But if he's not one, he's certainly number 2. He is an all-time legend, whether he gets another title or not. unfortunately, we live in a world where people only care about national titles, and I just wanted to shout out Tom Izzo, because nobody gets more out of their team, and I freaking love watching the guy, and I've always respected or watching his teams and watching the way he coaches his guys, and I will make fun of him forever, because that's what I do on my show, like in terms of stuff like, he throws his arm around his guys, during free throws, and the point guard comes over to talk to him, and he's got his arm around Travis Trice or Denzel Valentine or whoever else, and Cassius Winston and him would look like they're about to tongue kiss so often throughout Cassius's career. I'll always make jokes about that, and I'll always have some laughs where I can, but the man's incredible, and I just wanted to shout him out because I do love his coaching style, especially. Like, yeah, I remember him getting heat about yelling at Aaron Henry and Gabe Brown and all that kind of shit, and it's like, the guy knows what he's doing. Leave him alone. So, shit on the Big Ten all you want. I'm okay with it. We deserve it as a conference. But Tom Izzo, Michigan State are the one program that have uniquely positioned themselves to break through the narrative, break through the mold. And next year when you fill out your bracket, just, I don't know, keep that in mind, I guess. Like to me, Michigan State basketball is kind of Ohio State football, where all the tropes about Big Ten apply, but there's the one exception where it's like Ohio State is year in and year out going to be the one team that can actually compete with the SEC schools. Michigan State is that for the basketball, where it's like, year in and year out, yeah, I get it. There's no big, quote unquote, there's no big team that can win a national title. But let's just stop and take a look at Michigan State before we say that, before we're fully in on that idea. So anyway.
So then I know it's like a gray area. Do you consider Michigan State a blue blood?
It is a gray area. Well, they have multiple titles with multiple coaches, which I think is important, which Duke doesn't even have. Duke, all Duke's titles is one coach. So Duke, you could argue, is just one coach. Yeah, I think like ultimate. I guess that they're tier B blue blood. Is that
so? Who are
is that a fair? Is that a way to get out of it?
Sure. Who are your blue bloods then?
I mean, it's Kentucky, Kansas, Carolina, Duke, and then Indiana and UCLA. Like those are the seven. Kentucky, Kansas, Carolina, Duke, Indiana. I guess that's six.
Michigan wins it all this year. Do they bump up then?
Michigan State.
If Michigan State won it all this year, would they bump up? Because then Izzo would have two.
I think Michigan State is closer than people realize. I guess that's what that would be my. I saw someone sent me a graphic today. Let me see if I can pull this up. There is, in the last 25 tournaments, last 25 years, NCAA tournament wins in the last 25 years, there are 5 schools that have won 50 or more. Do you see this? Duke, Kansas, Kentucky, Carolina, and Michigan State. Those are the 5 schools that have won 50-plus games in the tournament in the last 25 years. And then it's UConn, Florida, Gonzaga that have won 40-plus, and then Arizona, Syracuse, UCLA, Villanova, and Wisconsin have won 30-plus. So the point is Michigan State is closer than people realize. They just haven't gotten over the hump to get the second title, which, again, is important. I'm not saying it's not. For a lot of people, it's like, yeah, that's it. That's you get to the door, you don't walk through. You're not in the house, baby. You got to walk through. But it's closer than it's closer than I think people realize. So that's all. And Tom Izzo, still the man. He's got a great recruiting class coming in next year. This man is not stopping. He's going to try to win it. He's gonna win another title or die trying. That's what it feels like.
It's his legacy on the line. They named the month after him. January, February, is it?
No, I don't know if like COVID added just 10 years to all of our lives, so like we think it's been longer than it has. But even talking to people around here, and they're like, "Well, Izzo hasn't really done much in a while." It's like in 2019 he went to the Final Four. Yeah. It's not like his last Final Four was like 2012, and we're like waiting for the.
It does feel like 50
Doesn't it feel like but and by the way, when you're talking about the Big Ten sucking in the tournament, again, the last couple they have, but let's not lose sight of 2019, Michigan State makes the Final Four. Virginia needed a miracle to beat Purdue, or you're one miracle away from half the Final Four being Big Ten. So like I said, the Michigan State is indicative of the Big Ten in that regard, that they can't get over the hump. The conference can't get over the hump. The national title is all that's waiting. I don't think they're going to win it this year, but I think people that are smart about this stuff realize there's more than just national titles to be won, and there's more than just, but that's how people still think Gonzaga is like a fraud program, and That's insane. They're going to eat Sweet 16. So anyway, those are my big 3 thoughts. Enough of that. Let's talk to Jon Rothstein. So we recorded this Tuesday morning. So I'm timestamping it. I'm not really sure why I'm timestamping it, because John timestamped it like 400 times as we were doing the interview. He
was obviously doing something, because he kept saying the exact time it was.
Well, you know what he was doing? He was about to break the Tobin Anderson news, which is why when I asked him about it, you guys will see and listen here in a second, but I asked him about it and he just kind of dismissive. It's because this son of a bitch was breaking the news right as why didn't he break it on the show?
It's we weren't live streaming it.
Yeah. You can still tweet it, and then I'll put this out tomorrow. Yeah. And
watch the YouTube. He's looking down hard at his phone towards the end of the interview.
It's hilarious. So if you want to see how Rothstein can do an interview while at the same time break coaching carousel news, watch the YouTube. But no, we had a fun talk about Ed Cooley and Rick Pitino and the Notre Dame job and all sorts of other stuff. I always love talking to John. So hopefully you enjoy listening to it and watching it. Here you go, Jon Rothstein. Today's show is brought to you by the Barstool Sportsbook. Nobody cares about your bracket, and that's why you need to download the Barstool Sportsbook. Sorry, Jake. Who really needs a bracket when you can just bet on all the action? And the Barstool Sportsbook is the best place to start. Now offering a $100 sign-up bonus for new users. Sign up today using the code TOURNEY, then place a $10 or more cash wager on any college basketball bet. Win or lose, receive $100 in bonus cash. So download and create an account today, and be sure to use code TOURNEY to unlock your $100 in bonus cash. 2 incredible rounds are in the books. There were some shocking upsets, and it should only get crazier, so make sure you sign up for an account. You get your $100 bonus, but we'll also have special bets and picks from Big Cat and Dave, and great promos like Parlay Insurance, Underdog Insurance, and more. So download the Barstool Sportsbook and create an account today, and be sure to use code TOURNEY to unlock your $100 in bonus cash. Must be 21 plus. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, joining me now is Jon Rothstein. He needs no introduction. I imagine we might talk a little Sweet 16, but I got him on because I want to talk coaching carousel. No one's more plugged in than this guy. We know this. The coaching carousel is hot right now, John. Ed Cooley to Georgetown, Rick Pitino to St. John's. I want to start with Pitino. I guess it's not as juicy. Cooley's probably juicier, but Pitino, to me, moves the needle more because he's Rick Pitino. Because, ultimately, this man might be the greatest college basketball mind of all time. And now he's back in high major college basketball-ish. So I guess my question to you is, A, was this a surprise to you that he seemed like he was going to just, fade into the sunset at Iona? Not that Iona wasn't competitive, but, he just seemed content there. So were you surprised by this? 2, do you think we will ever see Rick Pitino back in with a team that has Final Four capabilities?
Well, Mark, first off, to answer the first question, I just want to say, first off, it's a pleasure to be with you on your show, and we wish you the best in this show as you move forward in the next chapter of your burgeoning professional career. But first off, I think, around the start of the Big East tournament, I had, gotten the word, that St. John's had zeroed in on Rick Pitino to replace Mike Anderson. And what that means is St. John's all along in the search did not have a secondary candidate. Now, I knew it was very important for Coach Pitino to be in a situation where he felt like St. John showed a commitment to winning and provided him with the resources he needed to win. I knew he wasn't going to be able to really compartmentalize that until after Iona was done playing, which obviously happened to be after the NCAA tournament. So I'm not surprised he's the coach at St. John's. And I think all things considered, in a lot of ways, this is tying things together for Rick Pitino's career in terms of a bookend. Now, why do I say that? When you think about when Rick Pitino first came on the scene, it wasn't necessarily, as somebody who was in a situation at Boston University as a young head coach. It was the head coach of Providence in 1987 in the Big East. Well, where did he go after he led Providence to the 87 Final Four? He went to Madison Square Garden with the New York Knicks. So I think the fact that Rick Pitino could stay in the New York metropolitan area, obviously how great of a place to live that is. About all the diners on the Upper East Side that are open 24 hours a day. You now have a scenario where Pitino's back in the Big East. He's at a basketball-centric school, and there is such a low bar now at St. John's. Mark, we haven't seen St. John's win an NCAA tournament game since 2000. How long ago is that? Jay Wright was still the head coach at Hofstra.
Wow.
So for me, I think the fact that you have Rick Pitino, the fact that you have Madison Square Garden, the fact that you have the Big East, I expect St. John's with Coach Pitino, with Madison Square Garden, with immediate eligibility via the transfer portal to be nationally relevant next season.
Let's go. That's what I need to hear, because when Pitino left, it was funny. I'm gonna be honest, John. It was funny. Like the fallout of Rick Pitino at Louisville. In the moment, I couldn't get enough of like the comedy of it all, because I remember like he went on a radio show and talked about the recruitment of Brian Bowen and said it was the easiest recruitment of my life. And then ultimately we found out there were bags dropped, all this sort of thing. Like the whole thing was comedy. And then I let like a year or two pass, and I thought, I miss Rick Pitino so much. I miss this man. Yeah. I miss him being nationally relevant and in our lives with a team that could, he's always been like a guy that was the irony of it all, was like Rick Pitino always won with like 3- and 4-star recruits. He wasn't a guy going after the 5-star guys. I want him back. I want him to just have like a competent cast of talent, and if you're telling me it can happen at St. John's, I'm fired up, man, because this is going to be it's incredible that the Big East, thinking about like obviously Coach Mott at Butler and Rick Pitino at St. John's, you have the two most accomplished coaches in this conference are coaching two of the worst programs in the conference.
No doubt. And Mark, I look at it now, and I looked at this last night, after everything kind of happened yesterday in terms of the news cycle. 8 of the 10 current sitting head coaches in the Big East, Providence doesn't have a coach right now, have led programs to the second weekend of the NCAA tournament.
That's crazy.
Like, that is incredible when you think about the coaching cachet that's in this league.
But that's what this league has always been. So it's good to see, it'll never be the old Big East, but getting Rick Pitino into the fold and having this crop of coaches. And now I guess we could pivot to Ed Cooley going to Georgetown, because that's part of it too, is now there's like bad blood between certain programs. The Big East is red hot. So let's talk about Ed Cooley going to Georgetown. From my perspective, and I'm not plugged in on this stuff, I just pretend to be when it's convenient for my show. From my perspective, the Cooley to Georgetown talk was all smoke. There was nothing there. There was no substance. I was like, why would this man take this job when a couple years ago, my understanding was Michigan wanted him when they hired Juwan Howard. He turned that down. I was thinking to myself, like, Michigan is a way better job than Georgetown. If this man's going to turn down Michigan, why would he now take Georgetown? He's obviously married to the Providence family. He's from Providence. Like this all, like, none of it made sense other than people were throwing out like his daughter goes to Georgetown, and I said, like that's cool, but I don't think that's going to be enough for him to jump. He jumped. He did it, John. Was this I assume wasn't a surprise to you either, or did you find this at all surprising?
I initially was just like you, because Ed Cooley has obviously flirted with other jobs before, Michigan being the one that was obviously most highly documented, and Ed Cooley has always used that leverage to get better deals at Providence, which, kudos to him. He's going to write a book someday, The Power of Leverage. But, with that said, I did start to feel, after I started to follow up on this kind of, towards the last week of the regular season, that this might be different. Now, why might this be different? Providence is obviously, a great job with a passionate fan base, with a great home court. But I firmly believe, in talking to people around the situation the last 2 to 3 weeks, that there is a real feel that the Providence job in the Big East has significantly changed since UConn has rejoined the conference. All of a sudden, UConn is back. It has changed the complete feel about Big East basketball in New England. Another thing.
So can you elaborate on that? You're saying that like UConn being back is like swallowing Providence's.
Well, let's look at it like numerically right now, just in terms of history for a second. Ed Cooley led Providence to 7 of the last 9 NCAA tournaments. He should be commended for that. In the 27 years prior to that 9-year run, Providence went to just 7 NCAA tournaments in 27 years. UConn, before, when we were in the old Big East, was always the program that was the premier program in New England.
Yeah.
So now all of a sudden, when UConn did not initially go to the Big East once realignment hit in 2013, Providence had reinvented itself in this conference and became one of the premier brands in the Big East. That changed when UConn rejoined the league. Another thing, the ceiling of Providence, from everything I've gathered, he felt was not the same as the ceiling of Georgetown. And in this dynamic that we're in now, Mark, which you know as well as anybody, and you're relying so much on the transfer portal, at a school like Providence, it's going to be very difficult to get and retain the best high school players in the country. I think now with Ed Cooley at Georgetown, he will be able to go toe-to-toe with North Carolina, with Duke, with Kentucky for some of the top high school players in the country. Another thing in talking to people close to the situation, John Thompson Jr., Big John, was somebody who, again, took a liking to Ed Cooley and was very inclusive of him in a lot of events that the Georgetown family held. So in a lot of ways, Ed Cooley could be looking at this opportunity as a way to be the John Thompson of the 21st century and carry on his legacy at Georgetown. And look, here's another thing, too, that you and I, don't know, but it's true. Ed's kids are grown. They're from Providence. They love Providence. But, he and his family could also be reinvigorated about starting a new life and living in the Washington, D.C. area where their daughter obviously is just finishing up school and could be a young professional. There's that side, too, where, your kids are out of the house. You're looking for something new. You're looking for a new challenge, and professionally and personally, everything aligns. But I'll say this, and I wrote about this in my daily column today, The Breakfast Buffet. The new rivalry in the Big East is now Providence and Georgetown.
Absolutely.
Every single time those two teams play, especially when Ed Cooley goes back to Rhode Island and plays that game at the Dunk, and it will always be the Dunk. I'm not going to call it anything else. That will be appointment television, and I haven't confirmed this yet, but I'm pretty sure, Mark, that Ed Cooley's not going to be doing a long weekend in Newport this summer or any summer moving forward.
Are we worried? Is the Big East going to lean into this? Because I'm worried the Big East is going to find a way to make Cooley's first game back in Providence be
New Year's Eve,
when the Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, or sometime when the students won't be there because they're scared of all the heat he's going to get. I hope they don't do that. I hope if the Big East is truly the conference I believe it to be, they will have a Saturday 7 p.m. tip. Let those fans just get absolutely hammered leading up to the game. And I'm not condoning for obviously, throwing stuff on the court and being heinous, but I want to hear the loudest boos we have ever heard. And I have nothing against Ed Cooley. I just love drama. You
love drama.
I just love drama.
No, you love drama. And then the flip side of this is you think about this, Mark, all of a sudden, St. John's yesterday on Monday when the hire was made, makes an unbelievable leap in the Big East standings just by hiring Rick Pitino. And you know that whoever they land, obviously, this spring and summer is going to be obviously an upgrade with Rick Pitino as the head coach. Georgetown with Ed Cooley now takes a step up because obviously you're attaching a very accomplished coach to one of the great brands in college basketball. Yeah. The pressure now is on Providence. Providence went to 7 NCAA tournaments in 9 years, or 7 of the last 9 NCAA tournaments under Ed Cooley. Mm-hmm. The pressure is on Providence to make a hire to kind of hold serve. And again, I'll say what I said a couple of minutes ago. We are in a situation now where 8 of the 10 sitting head coaches in the Big East have taken teams to the second weekend of the NCAA tournament.
I got the guy for Providence. I have it figured out. And I know that you're just going to crap all over and say it's not going to happen. So I'm scared to say it because I like to live in a fantasy world where I can just name which head coaches I want to go to each place, and then it happens.
Okay.
But here's my fantasy hire. Bobby Hurley. Bobby Hurley at Providence, Dan Hurley at UConn. The Providence-UConn deal that you were talking about earlier, it's literally two brothers coaching against each other. Not just two brothers that are outside of their minds that will strangle each other. Tell me if Providence hires Bobby Hurley that the Big East isn't it's the number one. I don't care about how good the teams are in the Big 12. The Big East will be the greatest conference in college basketball if they hire Bobby Hurley.
Well, Bobby Hurley, has done a very, very good job at Arizona State. He's led Arizona State to 3 of the last 5 NCAA tournaments. That hasn't happened at Arizona State since the 60s. But if there was one thing that could bring this rendition of the Big East back to what it used to be, with the vitriol and all that stuff, it would be Bobby Hurley going to Providence. Wouldn't that be insane,
John?
Yeah.
I don't know how plausible it is. Probably not. Didn't you say Kim? Yeah. They're looking at Kim English?
Kim English is very well thought of at Providence. Yeah. I'm not saying he's definitely getting a job, but he is very, very well thought of at Providence, and he will definitely be a leading candidate for that job. I'm not saying he is the leading candidate, but he is very well thought of by Providence's administration.
He's well thought of by a lot of people. Kim English
good recruiter, was obviously a very, very good player, played in the NBA, so he's got the requisite to be a star in college basketball coaching for a long time.
Cooley to Georgetown, I don't know, man. I just don't get it. taking more money. Everything you said, I guess, sort of makes sense. But from where I'm sitting, I don't understand how people just take new jobs and follow. I certainly would never do that, John. So I don't understand people like moving across the country and just chasing the bag and all that sort of thing. It just doesn't add up to me. It doesn't make any sense. But I am curious. One more thing on Cooley is the move in this conference. That Chris Beard did something similar. I can't think of other examples. I know it's happened before, but boy, is it rare. Is this something that you think moving forward now in college basketball will happen more often, that coaches, there used to be this understanding, and same with players, by the way, like transferring in conference was unheard of as well with players. Now it's happening constantly. Is that something you think will happen more in college basketball, or is this like a one-off thing that Ed Cooley just said, screw it, I'm going to take this?
I think the awkwardness that, used to come with changing in conference from a coaching position is starting to dissipate. You mentioned Chris Beard. Mike White went from Florida to Georgia.
Yeah, that's right.
Ed Cooley went from Providence to Georgetown. So we've seen now the last 3 years, it's happened at least once. Yeah. So I think you'll start to see it happen more and more moving forward. We're in a different time now with immediate eligibility for players. The awkwardness and some of the stuff that, 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago that used to resonate a little bit more has dissipated. It's a much different time right now.
Let's talk about Notre Dame. Because they said Mike Brey was retiring a while ago, so they've been looking for a replacement for a while. They've done a good job of like sort of keeping it hush, but also names are getting floated here and there. And then Mike Brey like comes out and says, "I'm not retired." Now is Mike Brey going to South Florida or not?
He's in play there, Mark, as we're taping this right now. It's 10:15 or 10:16 a.m. Tuesday morning. I can't confirm an agreement between Mike Brey and South Florida. I know he's met with them and so on and so forth. But but I'm not ready to say that anything.
No. I'm not asking you to do that, John. I would never do that. I'm just we speculate on this show. I know that's not your thing, but that's what I do.
My rule is you never speculate on speculation.
But Notre Dame, like I feel like they would have been one of the first schools in this coaching carousel to sort of figure out what they want to do and lock in a guy. And I don't mean to suggest that they don't know what they want to do, but it is a little surprising given that they had more of a runway than St. John's and than Georgetown had. That it doesn't seem like Notre Dame is locked in on anybody, or have they? Because Micah Shrewsbury's the guy, John. He's been the guy all along. The second they said Mike Brey was
more plays than Broadway.
Yeah, is Shrewsbury
this is what I'll tell you, and this is the deal. One of the things with the Notre Dame basketball job that, is well known is that, you're not going to have, I think, the financial commitment that you might have at like a Big Ten school. Now, that can change, obviously, based on what Notre Dame is willing to pay for its next coach. But prior to, obviously, this cycle where Notre Dame is getting ready to make a hire, the staff pool, obviously, that somebody like Mike Brey probably had in the ACC and then the Big East was not comparable, definitely not today, to other staff pools. Also, from everything I've gathered, Notre Dame was very unlikely to pay a buyout for a sitting head coach. So your pool then of candidates is probably guys from the mid-major level. So you bring up Micah Shrewsbury, more plays than Broadway, did a tremendous job this year at Penn State. This is going to be the dynamic. He's somebody from the Midwest, as you know. He's got family in Indiana. Would he rather be the head coach of Notre Dame if he gets that opportunity? We don't know if he's been offered yet. I know yesterday he was busy working on recruiting stuff for Penn State. And again, it's Tuesday at 10:18 when we're taping this. Or do you stay in a league like the Big Ten where you are going to have a maximum financial commitment and get a contract that I would expect would be comparable to what Missouri did for Dennis Gates? Now, again, I don't have those terms yet, but I know this from a source close to the situation. If Micah Shrewsbury wants to leave Penn State for another opportunity, it won't be because of money. Penn State is prepared, and I reported this last week, to make a significant financial commitment to Micah Shrewsbury. And as you know, there's more than State College and just that great creamery, Mark. Although you're the type of guy who can eat whatever you want, you don't gain any weight. I hate people like you.
I would love that for Penn State. I think Penn State, and the obvious move for Penn State to me is to follow Auburn's model. I think Penn State needs to knock down their arena, build like a 8,000 to 10,000 seat arena, Invest heavily in Micah Shrewsbury, and you could, in the snap of a finger, have an electric basketball program, and that community would rally around it really, really quickly. It's just they've never cared, and it feels like Penn State's been stuck in like the fan base will start caring when the team is good, but the team can't get good until the fan base starts caring. Correct. And it's just like this purgatory. And Micah Shrewsbury has like injected some life into that program for the first time, like really ever. And it would be cool to see them, even though they're a conference rival of my team. I would still I love Shrewsbury so much. I do. But I don't know. Him being a Notre Dame made the most sense to me. What else is out there? Like Tobin Anderson, is he a guy that you think will get some buzz now? That's kind of how we're used to seeing this thing work. You win one game in the NCAA tournament.
Tobin's very, very well thought of. I think it would surprise me if he didn't have an opportunity. And like, here's the thing too, and you know this, you've been around a long time. You've obviously, been in the sport, as a player. I find that, there's coaches who obviously at the mid-major level get on runs in the NCAA tournament, and they have this window where they're really, really hot.
Yeah.
When you have a chance to move, you have to move.
Right.
And I'll give you a perfect example. Like nobody at the start of the NCAA tournament 10 years ago thought that Andy Enfield would be the coach of USC.
Right.
But because of the job he did with Dunk City and Florida Gulf Coast, he got that opportunity. Now, it would have been great if Andy Enfield got, a better mid-major job out of that run. But when you have a window to move, it is time to move. And, a perfect example of that is just these guys who get a little bit more selective because they don't want to move. They're in a good situation. My family's happy. But then all of a sudden, if you're in a one-bid league and you don't have your best effort, during the conference tournament, you get stuck. And you don't have the opportunity to financially benefit, long-term for you and your family.
One example that comes to mind, Iowa fans, plug your ears. Just fast forward the podcast. Todd Licklider, when he was in Butler, won like National Coach of the Year. He had like one good year at Butler. They go to the Sweet 16, and then Iowa comes and drops a fat bag, and it did not work out. And then Todd Licklider took his money, and now he's rich and just living out the rest of his life as a rich man.
Exactly.
So you got fired coach is the greatest job in the world. Fired coach from a high major is the greatest. I hope. Is it true that Tobin Anderson is making like $20,000? I see that being circulated like crazy. There's no way that's true.
$20,000.
There's no way that's true, right?
He's not making $20,000. He's not making $20,000. But it's I was thinking about you during the game because I saw you guys in Dayton, you and your crew. I wasn't expecting to see you before I did my first sideline hit on True TV. But I was just thinking about how crazy it was with what we saw in that game against Purdue. And like when, because we've obviously always talked about great upsets in the NCAA tournament, St. Peter's beating Kentucky or UMBC beating Virginia. FDU didn't even win its own conference tournament.
I know.
FDU was in a situation, for all intents and purposes where, let's face it, it was built on with D2 transfers. It is the most unbelievable upset that we have seen in the NCAA tournament.
This is bigger than UMBC to you.
Not even close because FDU started in the first four. UMBC didn't start in the first four. And here's another thing which doesn't get talked about enough with the Virginia upset. Virginia was 31-2 going into the NCAA tournament, had won the ACC tournament, but DeAndre Hunter, who was a lottery pick, was lost with injury. So Virginia didn't have him in that game.
Yeah, and Jairus Lyles was an awesome play. Like UMBC
transfer
had a guy.
DCU,
they had a dude that like could go in a way that not that Fairleigh Dickinson's guys weren't that good, but Tired of being soft when you should be hard? 40% of men suffer from hormonal imbalances and low testosterone, and no one's willing to talk about it. The average male testosterone level has decreased by 26% over the past 3 decades. The situation is that you have a bunch of guys that are depressed. They don't have energy. They can't focus. They're gaining weight faster. Their libido is gone. Elevated by AstroFlav is an all-natural testosterone booster containing 2 powerful ingredients, Fedoja agrestis and Tongkat Ali. This combination in Elevated has shown results of 250 point increase in total testosterone, but can be anywhere between 200 and 400 point increase, which increases energy, improves libido, reduces stress levels, helps build muscle, and burn fat. Elevated by AstroFlav has over 500,000 bottles sold to men with amazing results. Get a free 2-week trial of Elevated Natural Testosterone Booster. Just pay shipping. Visit astroflav.com/barstool to try today. That's astroflav.com/barstool. Go. Speaking of Fairleigh Dickinson, Purdue, John, Matt Painter on the hot seat. People are saying. What do we
He's
think?
not on the hot seat. He's not on the hot seat. But I said this in studio on CBS Sports Network last week. You think about what Purdue fans have endured the last half decade. In 2018, I thought their team with the right breaks could have won it all.
Yeah.
Isaac Haas gets injured in the NCAA tournament. He has the elbow injury. They lose to Chris Beard and Texas Tech in the Sweet 16. 2019, the game against Virginia that you have, obviously, and then they lose in overtime on that after the Mamadi Diakite shot sends it to overtime. 2021 in the bubble, you're a 4 seed. You lose to North Texas. 2022, you lose to St. Peter's when you have Jaden Ivey, Zach Edey, and Travion Williams.
That's the one that I think is the most painful. That's the one that's most painful. You're going.
Well, what about then FDU?
I didn't think that this Purdue team was going to win a national title anyway. I think they were destined to flame out in the Sweet 16. But to go into St. Peter's with 4 days prep against a 15 seed, especially when on the other side of the bracket the 1 seed's been knocked out, and you might have to play a 15 and an 8 to get to the Final Four, and you blow it against the 15. Then he follows it up losing to a 16, John. I think Matt Painter's situation is the most fascinating situation in coaching I've ever seen in my life because.
But regardless of all that stuff with Matt Painter, but with what I just went through with the last 5 NCAA tournaments, like Purdue fans have been taken to the gates of hell.
Purdue fans live at the gates of hell. That's where they're most comfortable. That is what being a Purdue basketball fan is. That's like you want to see
the gates of hell.
You want to see the saddest story in basketball. Go to Mackey Arena and look up at the banners, and you see like on one side it's like there's a banner that says Big Ten championships, and it's just like filled like crazy. And you look to the right, and it's like 1932 national champions that was awarded by a bakery in like 1950 when they voted on the shit like retroactively. And then there's like a 1980 Final Four banner, and that's all they have hanging up there. It's so sad. Let's talk about Sweet 16 a little bit. What are you going to one of the regionals? You staying in New York?
I'll be in the studio.
Okay, so you're
I'll stay in New York, and then obviously I'll be in Houston for our coverage down there next week, which is amazing. And we have 2 weeks left in the season.
As we're looking at the Sweet 16, how do you personally handicap this? Like we've seen some juicy upsets. Obviously, Purdue loses, Kansas loses, defending champs out. But I still feel like in terms of the heavy hitters, there's still plenty of like we might look up and it's Bama Houston in the title game. We're like, oh, never mind. After all that upset chaos going on, we still have the top 2 seeds playing each other. How would you handicap it right now as you see it?
Well, I name all the regions at the start of the tournament based on different themes. So the top region in the top left of the bracket I call the region of opportunity. And you look at the Sweet 16 matchups in the region of opportunity. Alabama, never been to a Final Four. San Diego State, first Sweet 16 since 2014. Mm-hmm. Creighton's in the second weekend. And then the darling of darlings, the Princeton Tigers, who Mark lost Ethan Wright to Colorado and Jalen Llewellyn to Michigan and have won 2 games in the NCAA tournament. So I like Alabama and Creighton up top, and I like Alabama to get to a Final Four. Then in the region of misdirection, which will be at Madison Square Garden, we've got Dusty We Sleep in May against, Rick Barnes, who has a team probably more suited for ultimate fighting at times than college basketball, but they are lethal physically. I think that Tennessee will beat FAU, and then I'm going to take January, February Izzo to beat Kansas State and my guy Clubber Tang. You like that spinoff Rocky 3?
That's good.
Instead of Clubber Lang,
that's
Clubber
good.
Tang. And then I'm going to take Michigan State as a 7 seed, just like 2015, to get to a Final Four. And then in the top right, I've got the region of guard play because we've got Sasser, Shed, Nigel Pack, Isaiah Wong, Wooga Poplar, Sule Boom, and then and you have Texas at the bottom with Marcus Carr, Serge Jabari Rice, and Tyrese Hunter. I picked Texas over Houston at the start of the tournament. I'm going to stick with that. But one thing that I think we should really look at right now from Xavier's perspective, and this I don't think is getting talked about enough, Sule Boom in his first 2 NCAA tournament games has not played well offensively. I had him this year as an All-American, but in 2 games, he's 8 of 26 from the field and 2 of 12 from 3. So Sule Boom can play a lot better. I'm going to stick with the Texas over Houston, and then down low in the region of brands, I'm going to take UConn and Gonzaga, and I have Gonzaga marching out of that region.
All right. Well, there you go. I guess they don't need to play the games, TJ. That's it. John just the FAU is an interesting story because I feel like they were in a position to be America's team, and then they beat FDU, and Elijah Martin tried to. How long do you think Elijah Martin should spend in prison for trying to dunk at the end of that game, John? Do we have a word on that?
It was not a classy move, but Dusty, we sleep in May is a classy guy.
He's a classy dude, but they're an interesting story because now all of a sudden, like they should be the Cinderella and the darling, but it feels like people want them to lose so bad. So I'm curious to see what happens with them against Tennessee. But then I feel like Tennessee's not there's a lot of stuff at play in Madison Square Garden. I'm excited for that game. Weirdly, I wasn't excited when I saw the matchup, but now I feel like people don't want to see Tennessee win either after that Duke game. I don't know. Everything's been turned on its head. Like Duke was like suddenly likable because Tennessee was like literally punching them in the face during the game. I don't know. I always try to figure this out, John. Like, who is America's team then? Who does that leave? You have
Princeton.
It's Princeton. It can't be Princeton.
Why not? They're the biggest underdog left.
They have a $37 billion endowment, John. Like, when is Princeton ever an underdog at anything?
They don't have scholarships.
They're run by the Illuminati. They could, if they want to win, if Princeton wants to win every NCAA tournament, they could. They just choose not to. They'd rather win water polo and rowing and freaking
I'm sure that's why in 2011 they lost to Kentucky and Brandon Knight by 2.
I genuinely believe this. If the Illuminati that run Princeton said the most important thing to us moving forward is to win an NCAA basketball championship, I think it would take less than 10 years for them to do it. I think they would spend every dime they have recruiting. I don't know. Maybe my good buddy who I work with, Wally Zerbiak, he has these takes that he kind of makes, and sometimes I'm just like, I don't agree with that. And I'm like, but you're on planet Zerbiak. There might be an 11th planet now. It's planet Titus. Where does have you seen Zerbiak's closet, by the way? The shoulders. Are his shoulders that broad, or does he have padded shoulders?
I mean, you're looking at an NBA small. No, he's an NBA small forward.
But I swear this man's wearing shoulder pads, John. Can you investigate that? Do some real journalism for once. Give me a look at Wally Zerbiak's Blazers, because this man's shoulders are incredible.
NBA small forward, man. NBA small forward and March Madness superstar when he led Miami to the Sweet 16.
He was an absolute superstar.
March Madness superstar.
What other jobs are out there? What are we anticipating anything? Because
I think the big thing now, Mark, because let's look at this as we tape it again. It's 10:30 now. From a power conference perspective, obviously Providence has got to make a big hire. We talked about Notre Dame. There's Cal in the Pac-12, and then there's Texas and Texas Tech. Texas, I think, will determine obviously how big the dominoes are for the rest of the cycle, because, Rodney Terry, who I've said it, ad nauseum, he's done things at Texas that haven't been done in a really long time. I mean, think about this for a second. Texas has not been done, and Texas has not been in the in the Sweet 16 since 2008. Rodney Terry took them there. Yeah. Texas has not won a Big 12 tournament title more than once in its history. Rodney Terry did it twice for the second time in program history this season. And he did all this, Mark, really amidst a crisis. But you know how life is. You can't control what happens to you. You can control how you respond. But in the middle of the season, when everything happened, with that program, Rodney Terry stepped in and led this program to a Big 12 tournament championship and beat Kansas twice in a week, and then led Texas to the Sweet 16. So regardless of what happens moving forward, this guy hasn't just met expectations, he's exceeded expectations. I don't know what the requisites are to be the Texas head coach, but Rodney Terry has went above and beyond what was expected, and he deserves to be the head coach of Texas. And I don't even think it's a conversation.
I completely agree with you. Is it good? Does he have a chance? Are they going to hire him? It seems like if it feels like this is something they should have already announced. But I'm worried they're not even going to give him a shot. But if he makes the Final Four and they don't hire him, that's insane.
I think one thing we're seeing, and I've said this, for years, and you and I got into a little bit of a back and forth on this, I think 2 years ago, you came at me and trolled me. But a lot of times,
which time? Which time?
I think this was in Indiana in 2021.
Brad Stevens?
But a lot of time, I think that this is the bottom line. When you have a program, and I think Texas falls in this, that obviously is a great job, but is not Duke or Kentucky or Kansas.
Yeah.
And has maybe unrealistic expectations. Like Indiana is a great job, but you know this, there's probably never going to be somebody there who did what Coach Knight did. And again,
strangled his own players. Yes.
Correct. So and again, Planet Titus. And another thing, there was an appetite for change at the end of Rick Barnes' tenure at Texas. But Rick Barnes went to 16 to 17 NCAA tournaments at Texas.
Yeah.
Like, that's incredible. And a similar thing to another thing I think you were very passionate about. I think you changed your tune 4 years later, but not a lot of people 4 years ago were really, really going crazy for the opportunity to leave a good situation and go to UCLA. And Mick Cronin went and took that opportunity, and he has now made UCLA into a top 5 program nationally.
Mm-hmm.
And again, they've been banged up. They've dealt with all sorts of injuries, but Mark, you look at the scenario right now where UCLA is. UCLA has been in the Sweet 16 3 straight years. They've went to 1 Final Four. They're going to play Gonzaga later this week, but Mick has now built that program again into a top 5 program. And the program that I think is really kind of feeling the effects of that is Cincinnati in your, region of the country. I think Wes Miller is a terrific, young coach. I think he did a great job this year. They were very competitive. I thought they played well in the American Conference tournament. But Cincinnati, when Mick Cronin was there, went to 9 straight NCAA tournaments. They haven't been back since, and they're going into the Big 12 next year.
I know that's going to be tough.
But I mean, like that's a thing. Maybe like you and I over the summer, if it's raining, we can get into like going to every team and the real intricacies of the dynamics of the off the radar teams. But Cincinnati, when Mick was there, was always in the tournament, always a tough out. Had a great win. I remember in 2012 in the Sweet 16, they beat Leonard Hamilton in Florida State. It was the ACC tournament champions. But like now, all of a sudden, Cincinnati really hasn't been anywhere near the bubble except for the year after Mick left and the tournament was canceled. That's it. And that was with Jaron Cumberland, who the program still obviously had from Mick Cronin.
I'm fascinated the 4 teams joining the Big 12 because of the 4, Houston's the only one that feels like it's in a position to compete as soon as they step in. BYU, Central Florida, Cincinnati. That's going to be interesting.
Well, and then you think about it, like, all programs are looking at like the conference schedule and like waiting to see, what games can we win? When's the easy patch of our schedule? Like the easy patch next year at the Big 12 and be like, okay, we're at BYU, we're at UCF, we're home Texas Tech, we're home TCU.
Yeah.
I mean, that is going to be a dynamite conference. I know, obviously, like Texas and Oklahoma are going to go in a year to the SEC, but next year, I mean, that is going to be crazy good. And look, I think too, we led with this, but the Big East now with the cachet of the coaches, especially with hiring Rick Pitino, is just going to go through the roof. Rick Pitino coaching in Madison Square Garden. That's why, as I said, and I wrote today, Providence is on the clock here.
Yeah.
Providence has got to make a strong hire to kind of counter what's going on around them.
It's Bobby Hurley. I mean, done. I just did the hire for him. Done. A+. You're done. You win. Congratulations, Providence. You got your new coach.
Titus and Kat search for him.
The part of what makes the Big East awesome though is that it's a basketball conference. That all the schools have football teams, or most of them do, but they stink, or they're not, high major or whatever division, Division 1A. So
the other thing I want to bring you back, because we're talking about all these conferences. It is a very, very unique time in the ACC, and Miami is carrying the flag right now for the ACC as a basketball-centric school. Miami's been to the second weekend of the NCAA tournament under Jim Larinaga 4 times since 2013. Miami's, turned into guard more guards than Shawshank. I've said that time and time again. But, you look at the state of transition now at North Carolina, at Duke. Virginia was upset by Furman. You've got an unbelievable and unique time in the ACC where we don't have Roy Williams. We don't have Coach K. Virginia's coming off, an NCAA tournament loss in the first round. Virginia didn't make the NCAA tournament last year. Jim Boeheim is not at Syracuse. You've got an interesting time in the ACC, and you've got to also face the facts with your conference, the Big Ten. In the last 3 years, the Big Ten has sent 26 teams to the NCAA tournament, and
nobody
4
cares,
made
John.
the second weekend.
Nobody cares. We don't need to talk about that. We don't need to, why is that relevant? Chris Holman's coaching at Ohio State next year, is he not?
Yes.
Okay, that's all I needed to hear. Why do I not get enough? You mentioned, you brought up, you hinted at the Brad Stevens drama, and someone reminded me of this yesterday. Why does the Scoops community never give me credit for getting Brad Stevens to Indiana off the board in Vegas? That happened, John. That was the thing that happened. That I memed Brad Stevens to Indiana so hard that Vegas took him off the board. You could bet on who would be the next Indiana coach, and because of my memes, you could no longer bet on Brad Stevens. And the Scoops community, I feel like I've never been recognized for my contributions to that. And I don't know. I just feel like that's unfair. That's unfair that you just take shots at me when I affected Vegas.
I've never taken a shot at you. I've never taken a shot at you since I've met you. Because for a long time before we met, I heard you used to tell people, I don't think this guy's a real person.
He's not a real person. You're not a real person. You're such a robot. Is it? By the way, I wrote this question down. I had to ask you. We could wrap it up with this. Has enough time passed that the Damar Hamlin thing is funny now? What was that day like for you? When you tweeted, because TJ, by the way, our producer TJ, I don't know if you've ever met him, producer of my show here. He's a big Rutgers fan, and I talked to him about this. That you two, I believe, are the only two people on planet Earth that were locked in on Rutgers Purdue as Damar Hamlin had collapsed on the field. So TJ
didn't know there was a football game going on.
I think I was 8 tweets deep before I noticed something else was happening on Twitter.
Yeah. So TJ was in line with you. TJ's like, free Rothstein. Like, he didn't do anything wrong. Like, Rutgers upset the number 1 team in the country. Let's go.
But you know this as well as anybody. Only in 2023 could you try to be chastised for doing your job.
I know. What was that day like what was the fault? Like, how much stress was there for you with that?
Well, no, I was just like, why are people getting mad that I'm doing my job? And then people are like, what? You don't understand what's happening in the football game. I was like, I only watch one football game a year, the Super Bowl. And I don't really even watch the Super Bowl. It's more of just a party that my wife and I have just to be social because I don't see people once basketball starts.
That was the most Jon Rothstein moment of all time. There will never be another. Like that, you cannot top that. For those who have no idea what I'm talking about, Rutgers, Cam Spencer, I believe, hit the game-winning shot, right, TJ?
Yes.
To knock off number 1 and undefeated Purdue in Mackey Arena. And John tweets, consult your local cardiologist or something.
Grab your nitroglycerin pills.
Yeah, grab your nitroglycerin pills.
I feel terrible because I want the young man to be okay, and prayers out to Damar Hamlin. But like, it's just crazy how people are like mad because like you're doing your job.
I don't know. As a neutral observer, I'll be honest. I didn't even realize the Damar Hamlin thing was going on at first, and then I had people sending me your tweet, and they're like, "Oh no, John," and I was like, "What's going on?" And then they said he just tweeted this like right at the exact moment that Damar Hamlin collapsed on the field.
Talk about Murphy's Law right there for me. My God.
Yeah, I felt bad because, like, I'll be completely honest, I probably laughed in the moment, and that was even before we knew Damar Hamlin was okay. I was like, this is so absurd that like I have no choice but to laugh. But I'm glad it all worked out. When are you gonna give me a scoop? Give me a scoop, John. I every time you come on my show, I ask you for a scoop.
I gave you a scoop when we had lunch, and I gave you a scoop about my personal life a couple of years ago.
That's right. You did. You broke on my old show that you were engaged to be married. Can we break something else or no? Are you in position to do that? No, I don't. Can I do that? You
can break the information that I gave you when we had lunch.
All right. Jon Rothstein, everybody. This is breaking news. Is going to be a father. Let's go.
There you go.
This is my function in the Scoops community. Is I break Jon Rothstein's personal life news. I scoop the scooper. That's what I do. You're the guy that gets all the scoops, but I get your scoops, John. So what does that? That makes me the ultimate scooper, I think.
The ultimate scooper. The ultimate scooper.
You're gonna be a dad. That's exciting. Congratulations.
So excited. So excited. We're so excited, to welcome a third member of our family in. So we're gonna get through these next couple of weeks through the Final Four, and then just start. I didn't make many decisions, Mark, as you know, because you were kind enough to have my wife on your podcast. I did, before, yes. But now I'm definitely going to make none.
It sounds like you're never going to sleep. Also, you're going to have to update "We Sleep in May" to "We Never Sleep." We just, as a father of a young child, I never sleep. That's your new catchphrase.
I was thinking about doing a live chat when we're in the delivery room. Maybe do a Q&A on Twitter. That could be good content.
His name is Jon Rothstein. You can follow. Are you still on Twitter, by the way? Do you still have a Twitter account? Can people follow you? Can people follow? I'm kidding, John. I'm kidding, John. Check DMs, John. I'm going to send you a DM later. Make sure you click on the link.
No, I'm not talking any. Just text me from now for the rest of your life.
I accidentally got John's. It wasn't even me, but I got John's Twitter account hacked, and that was a low point for our friendship. That I had to explain to him that I didn't. Someone hacked me, and then they used my account to hack John, and he thought I hacked him, and I was like, John, I'm hacked too. We're in this together, buddy. And he was like, I don't care. You hacked me. Follow John on Twitter. We appreciate all the insight. Get back to scooping, man. I know it's a busy time of year. Thanks for making time for us, John.
Mark, congratulations on this new endeavor. So happy for you. Looking forward to obviously following your continued burgeoning career. And there's one thing. I love New York, but I also love Chicago. So pumped to see you guys at some Cubs games. Yeah, no, we love Chicago, man, especially in the summer. Chicago is an awesome city.
Well, let's go. Come visit. I'll see you in Houston. You going to Houston?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'll absolutely be in Houston.
All right.
Bud.
Well, I'll see you in Houston. Thanks, buddy.
This was fun. Thanks, man.
Quick break to talk about our friends at Coors Light. There's nothing like the excitement of the big tournament, but every buzzer beater for your team is someone else's bracket buster, and every game is a chance to turn the tables when your pride or your money is on the line and you need to take a beat. Take a moment to chill with an ice-cold Coors Light and a limited edition Coorsicle. And I'm telling you right now, if you see me in Madison Square Garden and you wanna chat about ball, I will chat my heart's delight. If I do not have a Coors Light in my hand, we need to fix that immediately before I chat with you. So Jake and I are going to go over to Madison Square Garden for these regionals, and hopefully we run into some people and chat it up with you guys. But I'm telling you right now, if I don't have a Coors Light in my hand, we got to fix that first, then we'll chat. So just letting you know, I'm not telling you have to buy me a Coors Light. I'm just telling you I need one in my hand. For a limited time, you can also get your hands on an ice-cold Coorsicle. It is a non-alcoholic ice pop with the cold, crisp, refreshing taste of Coors Light. Enjoy one as part of the ice-cold trifecta, a bucket of ice-cold Coors Light, and a Coorsicle. Use it to stay chill when the game gets heated. For 21 plus only. When you need a strategic timeout from the madness, reach for Coors Light and a limited edition Coorsicle. Look for Coorsicles at a bar near you or visit CoorsLight.com/Coorsicle. That's COORSICLE. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. All right, before we get out of here, I want to do some expectation tiers, I guess we can call them. Just like I said at the top, like you look at these 16 teams, not all of them are trying to win a national title. They'll tell you they are, but let's be honest, like Princeton is not saying we're here to win the title. Florida Atlantic, probably not. But some of them are. So I thought it would be useful to, instead of power ranking who's playing the best and who's playing, not playing as well and all that sort of thing, it's more interesting to me to rank it as like what does success and failure, maybe failure is too strong of a word, but success and not success, we'll put it that way. I'll soften it a little bit, look like for each of these teams. So I tiered it like this. There's the title or bust tier, and these are the teams that if they do not win the national title, they will look back on this season and say, we came up short. This is what we expect to do. We did not do it. And this one's going to sting for a very, very long time. I surprisingly, and reasonable minds can disagree on this, I have one team in the title or bust category, and it is Houston. It is not Alabama. I believe it is Houston. And the reason why is this. They have been the betting favorite all season. They are a team that came into the season. I think they were ranked number 2 in the preseason poll behind Carolina, but Vegas had them pegged as the favorite the entire season. They're still the favorite, along with Bama. Bama's caught up to them, but they are still the favorite. They check every single box you want to have a national champion, defensive-minded, guard play, great coach, 5-star, that's going to be a lottery pick on down the line. They have, as a program, already gotten over the Final Four hump, and this resurgence of Houston basketball since Phi Slamma Jamma, there are check marks that you got to get to, and some schools just burst right through the check marks. When Jim Calhoun took over at UConn, he was like, to hell with your check marks, we're going to go win national titles. We're just going to dive right in and do it. Houston has done it and, check the Final Four box to where, like, if they make another Final Four, I don't think that really does anything for the fan base. I don't think it does anything for Kelvin Sampson. It adds to the legacy, it adds to the resume, all that sort of thing. But I think they're put in a position right now with this specific group where you're losing Jarris Walker, you're losing Marcus Sasser next year, almost certainly. And you're also joining the Big 12 next year, where I don't necessarily think Houston is going to take a step back, but you don't know. There's a lot of unknown. When you switch conferences and you're playing teams you're not familiar with, and you're traveling to arenas you're not familiar with, and Houston is in a great position as a program. Kelvin Sampson has them rolling. I don't mean to suggest they're going to fall off, but you can't take that stuff for granted when you move conferences, that you're just going to that Houston's just going to step in and start competing with Kansas, and it's going to be Houston, Kansas 1A, 1B for every Big 12 crown. I don't think you can necessarily take that for granted. So who knows what the future of Houston basketball looks like. If there's an adjustment period, they go to the Big 12. I think that the time is now. The Final Four is in Houston. Jim Nance is there, which a lot of people don't care about, but I think does matter in some way. I think it does. So I have Houston as my title or bust tier, and that's it. I think that they would agree with that. I think that they said coming into the season, this is what we're trying to do. This is our goal. And the way the bracket's shaken out, they don't have the easiest draw in the world. Went basically chalk in the Midwest. But I have to think that Houston's looking at that saying we're better than Miami. Miami plays a very similar style as Houston, and Houston does it better. And Xavier in Texas, like I think it's a guard, as Rothstein said when he names his little regions. I think he named the Midwest as region of guard play. And I like Houston's guards better than probably anybody in the country when they're cooking. So Houston's my title or bust tier. Final Four or bust tier. Again, it's not necessarily a failure, but I think these are the teams that are saying, this is our goal, this is what we're after, yada, yada, yada. Alabama's obviously in there. And especially you look at Alabama's draw. No disrespect to San Diego State, Creighton, and Princeton, but I don't think Alabama's really sweating any of those teams. I think Bama feels like they're in a great spot. They are the best team in the country. They've never made a Final Four in program history. The only Elite Eight they've ever made was in 2004. But the reason I don't have Bama as a title or bust situation is because of that. I think I don't think they necessarily need to win the title. I think this is a program that's like trying to check those boxes. Nate Oates has gotten to a couple Sweet 16s now, and he's back again. And can he get them over the hump and get to a Final Four? That would be awesome. If somehow they lose in the Final Four, they're playing Tennessee or something, and Tennessee knows them well because they're conference rivals, or Michigan State pulls off some magic, Kansas State, I don't know. They lose in the Final Four. If they lose in the national championship, it'll be disappointing. They are the best team. That would stink. I don't think that they would be popping champagne bottles in the locker room, certainly, but I think they would look back on this season and say that was a very important season to build as a program towards whatever's next. And I do think Nate Oates has the program in a position to be great moving forward, to where I don't have the sense of like, this is Alabama's one shot. If they blow this, they're screwed. So I think it's Final Four or bust for them. UCLA, I think, is Final Four or bust. I think if Jalen Clark was fully healthy, they would be title or bust. I think that would be their mindset. I think where it's at now, all the injuries they have piling up, I think they're just in a position where they're like, we think we are of that caliber, but at the same time, like, let's be realistic about this. They have a very, very difficult draw with Gonzaga, and then the winner of Arkansas UConn is not going to be fun if they can get past Gonzaga. But the senior class that they have, or the OG Cronin guys, is the most important senior class at UCLA in a very, very long time, with Jaime Jaquez, Tiger Campbell, David Singleton, and Kenneth Wuba. Those four dudes, mostly the top three guys, have been through it with Cronin this whole run. That Howland run from 06 to 08, I went back and I looked, and because this is what I thought the case was, they had a lot of roster turnover, so it wasn't like one senior class like progressing through with Ben Howland that was going to these Final Fours. But this class that Cronin has brought in can go down as like an all-time UCLA class. Now, UCLA is a school that has hung 11 banners, obviously. Final Fours don't really get people going as much in LA as they used to. But for me, that would be sick. I mean, if this group of guys can go to 3 straight Sweet 16s, go to 2 Final Fours, whatever happens after that, I think is gravy. But I do think they got to get to the Final Four. I think that is their expectation with how much talent they have. The other two I would throw in there, UConn, which is a program that is obviously won 4 national titles, but they have been talking that shit, man. Since Dan Hurley's gotten back, the last couple years, there's just like a juice to the UConn program that there has not been in a decade. And I think if you're going to have that juice and you're going to talk that shit and you're going to puff your chest out, you got to make a Final Four. And I think like with the talent they have on this team and the fact that they were at times this year the best team in the country, but they also haven't won anything. The Dan Hurley has not won anything at UConn. In 2016, they won the American tournament, I think, but they haven't won a regular season Big East title since 2006. They haven't won they haven't gone to the Final Four since 2014. They haven't won a Big East tournament since 2011. I think UConn, if you're going to announce your rival as being back, this is the exact weekend that you do that. You're going up against an Arkansas team that has a ton of talent, but is also an 8 seed, has not been able to put it together as well as they would have liked this year, but they're playing well right now. Understand all that. You beat Arkansas, you beat Gonzaga or UCLA. You have now announced you're back. You have now definitively said, to hell with the haters. We have announced, and that's what they're saying anyway. So go out and prove it. I think UConn is in Final Four bust mode, and I think Texas is too. I think Texas, they've overachieved given the Chris Beard situation, and if they lose by 1,000 to Xavier, I still think. Maybe 5 years from now we'll look back on it and say like that wasn't too bad of a season, or we'll provide some context. It won't be that bad, but I think they just have all the pieces, and this was supposed to be coming into the season the team that flipped the narrative about Texas basketball. That was where we had arrived in the arc of Texas basketball. Was you have all these seniors, and you have the guard play and the defense and the coach. You had Chris Beard. This is, forget the Rick Barnes era where we have all this talent and we can never do anything with it. Forget the Shaka Smart era where there's more of the same. Now, at coming into this year, this was a Texas team that was going to break through all of that. They were going to compete for a national championship. They looked that good out of the gate. Obviously, the Chris Beard stuff threw a whole wrench in that thing, but they've got it back. If you watch this Texas team now and you put a curtain over the bench so you didn't know who was coaching, you would think that it's still great. You would think that if you watch them at the start of the year and you watch them now, you'd think this is the exact same team. Nothing has changed. They're playing great basketball, and I think they're in a position where they don't know where the future holds. You don't know who the coach is going to be moving forward. We don't know what the roster turnover is going to look like with them having so many older players. You're going to a new conference in a couple years. Again, like I said about Houston, I don't think that Texas is going to struggle in the SEC necessarily or anything like that. There's just a lot of unknown. And the one thing we do know is that this team is good enough to make a Final Four. This team is good enough to beat Houston, good enough to beat Miami, good enough to beat Xavier. So go do it. And I think that's their mindset. I think they're Final Four bust as well. Then the next tier I have after those teams is the off-peak year is what I'm calling it. So these are teams that are good enough to win it probably, but they're kind of playing with house money. I think if you're a fan of these programs, you're just like, yeah, we could win it. That'd be cool. But I didn't really expect us to be in the mix. And my three that applied to are Gonzaga, Arkansas, and Michigan State. Gonzaga has been playing great basketball lately. Their offense is humming. The matchup with UCLA's defense is going to be so fun to watch. But this Gonzaga team is probably in the bottom half of Mark Few's best teams in the last 10 years. Not even probably. Is definitely one of the worst teams that Mark Few has had in the last 10 years, which says less about this team and more about how awesome he's been over the last 10 years. But yeah, Gonzaga fans are not looking at this team saying, we expect a national title, we expect a Final Four. They're just like, it's pretty crazy that we don't have really that much pressure. And, whatever happens, happens. If they lose to UCLA, they're going to be like, yeah, you know what? It ended up being a pretty fun year, and Drew Timme was fun to watch, and we made a Sweet 16 and kept the streak alive. That's pretty cool. Arkansas, back-to-back Elite Eights. This would be 3 in a row. You beat Kansas. To now where the bracket's blown wide open, and once you're beating the defending national champions and a 1 seed, you're saying to yourself, we can beat anybody, and they can. They're with Nick Smith and Anthony Black. You have every single time you take the floor, if you're Arkansas, you're telling yourself, we have the top 2 players on the court every single game. Now they're young, they're raw, they're still not, what they're going to end up being in the NBA, but that's a luxury. It's absolutely a luxury. So Arkansas is a team that I think through the ups and downs of the season, tons of injuries, some weird losses here and there, but they now find themselves in a position where they're sort of putting it together for the first time all season. They have loads and loads of talent and athleticism. But I don't think the fan base is saying like we now are back to expecting XYZ. I think they're like, damn, this is pretty sick, because I had counted our season at lost there for a second. I thought this was destined to be a what if season, but now all of a sudden we're back in the Sweet 16, and who the hell knows what's going to happen from here. And then Michigan State, I've already talked about Izzo so much. I don't need to talk about Michigan State more than I don't need to make this thing a whole Michigan State show, but yeah, this is not one of Tom Izzo's best teams, but they are in a position where now I don't know what the odds say their chances are of getting out of the East, but I think they're definitely a trendy pick. Rothstein literally did pick them, didn't he? I think he said in the East he expects Michigan State to come out. I think Michigan State fans are saying to themselves, there was a time this year where, like I said with these other teams, like where we were like, damn, we suck and the season's over, and now all of a sudden you're back in the Sweet 16 and playing in the Garden, and you're like, all right, I'll take it. Never mind, I take it. My next tier I wrote starting to talk themselves into it, and these are fan bases that at some point, I kind of said this about the last tier. These are the fan bases that if at some point this season, if you put a button in front of them and said, if you push this button, you will go to the Sweet 16, but you will lose in the Sweet 16. Or you cannot push the button and you could just play out March Madness and see what happens just naturally. Maybe you'll win the national title. Maybe you'll lose in the first round by 40. Maybe you won't even make the tournament. Are you going to push the button? I think every single one of these teams at some point this year would have smashed the shit out of this button and said, oh my God, Sweet 16? That would be insane. Now that they're here, they're like, wait a second. We're better than that. And they're talking themselves into it. Miami, who lost 4 of 7 in January, including to Georgia Tech. They've played a ton of close games. I know they ended up winning the ACC, but you lost to Florida State, for God's sakes, and you lost to Georgia. Like, Miami has been a little up and down. And like, I know this because I have friends in my life who are Miami fans, and at no point were they saying we are a Final Four team. They were saying we're capable. They're saying if we play our best basketball, maybe we could. But at no point were they saying we're Final Four good. But now all of a sudden, you beat the snot out of Indiana. You're like, hey, maybe we are Final Four good. Tennessee, same thing. Tennessee was a team that looked Final Four good midway through the year. They lost 5 of 7, or they were 5 and 7. I'm sorry, in their last 12 entering the tournament. They lost 7 of the last 12 entering the tournament. But then they beat the snot out of Duke, and suddenly you're talking yourself back into it. Where you're like, why don't we just fist fight every single team we play? And if that's what happens, we're gonna win the national championship. Creighton lost 6 straight at one point. Lost 3 of 4 not too long ago. They had there was high expectations were sky high coming into the season. They got readjusted midway through the season. Now Creighton fans are back to talking themselves into it, but there's also like something in the back of their mind that's sort of waiting for the other shoe to drop. So I think they're starting to talk themselves into a team. And Kansas State with a year 1 coach, they started 15-1. Went 4-6 from mid-January to mid-February. That 10-game stretch, they lost 6 of the games. They lost to Butler earlier in the season. Shout out Butler beating Kansas State. So it's been, it's been a really, really fun year for Kansas State. Obviously, Jerome Tang has reinvigorated the program. But I think coming into the tournament, Kansas State fans are probably like, I don't really know what to expect. And now all of a sudden, Marquise Noel was balling out against Kentucky, and he's coming back to New York, and you're like, wait a second, I'm starting to talk myself into something. And especially with Marquette losing, and you're staring at a 7. You could play a 7 seed and a 9 seed to get to the Final Four. You're like, wait a second, maybe we're going to the Final Four. My next to last tier is, we'll publicly say that they have title aspirations, but privately are kind of just still happy to be here. That's where they're at. They're like, if you ask them, you put a microphone in front of them, they'll say, oh, absolutely, we think we can win the national title. But behind closed doors, they're like, how sick is it that we're still dancing? This is awesome. I can't believe this. It's Xavier and San Diego State. Xavier has never made a Final Four in their school history. They looked really shaky against Kennesaw State. Sully Boom has not played well in this tournament, so if you're trying to be optimistic as a Xavier fan, you think you get your best player going, Xavier can get it all back. I don't mean to say they don't have a shot against Texas. They do. If the offense is clicking like it has been at times this year, of course they have a shot. But they had some bad losses this year. They lost 5 of 10 at one point, and 3 of the losses were Butler, DePaul, and Villanova at home. I think Xavier is, as much as they don't want to say they're happy to be here, I think they're just a little small part of them is happy. When they lose to Texas, they're going to spin it as this was still a successful season, and it was. You have Sean Miller back, and away we go, and the program's in a great spot. But I don't think Xavier is really going into the Sweet 16 saying we love our draw with Texas and Houston and Miami, and then Arkansas, UConn, Gonzaga. Like the draw is absurd for Xavier. One. But two, you're a program that's never made a Final Four, so let's be realistic about this. Is this team better than some of these other teams you've had in the past with Chris Mack? Chris Mack had a 1 seed, I don't think they are. San Diego State is another one. Has never made the Elite Eight in this program's history. You're going up against the best team in the country, the number 1 overall seed in this tournament. I think this is a good matchup. I think San Diego State has a shot. I do think that they could pull the upset. I think if you're a San Diego State fan that's going into this game saying, I expect to win, you're outside of your mind. You are living on another planet. And, I don't think that's the way you should approach this. I think you should approach it saying, we hope we can. We'll see what happens. And I think they can. I think there's a timeline where San Diego State pulls off the upset, slows the game down, guards the 3 well, can get Brandon Miller in foul trouble, and San Diego State brings their offense. But I certainly, if I'm San Diego State, I would not say we are expecting to when you're a program that's never once done this, I don't think you're staring at the number 1 team in the country saying, or the number 1 team in the tournament saying, we've never been here before, but now this is the time we're going to step into it. So I put them in that category. And then finally, the teams that are definitely just happy to be here are Florida Atlantic and Princeton. I think that's pretty obvious. I think Florida Atlantic should not have even beaten Memphis in the first place. And then you beat a 16 seed to get here, and that game was even kind of close. You're happy to be here. Don't say you're not. Don't lie to me. Princeton's 100% happy to be here. Princeton, yeah, they're 100% just happy to be here. So that's the way I see it. Those are my expectation tiers. There you go. Dogs will eat anything. Shoes, toilet paper, garbage, and even kibble. But just because they'll eat it, does it mean it's healthy food? Here's an idea. What if dogs ate real food? Eating processed food for every meal is not healthy. We all know that. And kibble is subject to multiple rounds of high heat processing, making it an ultra-processed food. Try something fresh. Feed your dog the farmer's dog. It's real, fresh, healthy food with whole meat and veggies, gently cooked in human-grade kitchens to preserve their nutritional value. Just tell them about your dog, and they'll deliver personalized, vet-developed recipes for as little as $2 a day. Meals arrived in pre-portioned, ready-to-serve packs, conveniently delivered on your schedule. Dog people all across the country have ordered millions of meals from the farmer's dog. It's never been easier to invest in your dog's health with fresh food. Get 50% off your first box of fresh, healthy food at thefarmersdog.com/Titus. Plus, get free shipping. Just go to thefarmersdog.com/Titus. Get 50% off. That's thefarmersdog.com/Titus. Please, I'm begging you. Your dog is begging you. You have a dog. You love it. Why don't you show how much you love your dog by going to thefarmersdog.com/Titus. Get 50% off. Please, do it. Shoutouts? Anything else before we go?
You going to the games this week?
I think I have to.
Yeah.
I think I would break Jake's heart if I didn't. When we were in Columbus, he got me credentials for the Vermont Marquette game, and I was just like, Jake, I can't. I don't know how to tell you this without telling you this, but like, I just simply don't think Vermont has much of a chance against Marquette. Like, I don't want to miss the opportunity to have all the gambling guys yell at me at the casino to go to the game with you at Columbus just to watch. No, I seriously, I didn't want to miss like all the other games going on just to watch a 15 get destroyed by a 2 seed.
Yeah, that was likely a smart business decision for you as well, because like,
yeah, and also to fly on a private jet to like not go to the might have been a bad look.
At least something for them to talk about.
Yeah, so I was like, I don't think I want to now. Looking back on it, I think we were credentialed for FDU Purdue. I think we could have been in the building. That would have been sick to have been there. So I don't want to do that to him again. But also, NCAA tournament games in the Garden is cool. And Florida Atlantic, Tennessee is, I don't know, I've gone back and forth. I just told Rothstein I was excited about it, but I don't know if I am or not. I don't know. They are probably 2 of the most hated teams left. But Tennessee did it against. This is the difference. Florida Atlantic pulled some bullshit with like the dunk attempt and all that. They pulled it against Fairleigh Dickinson, who's the darling of this tournament, and so that's people hate them for that. Tennessee had some villain behavior, but it was against Duke, so I don't think like maybe people don't hate it as much because it was against Duke, but really like Plajic should have gotten 5 flagrant fouls in that game, like before the first media timeout. The guy was just came out literally swinging. So I feel like Tennessee, as a neutral party, it feels like Tennessee and Florida Atlantic are 2 of the most hated, other than Alabama, obviously, but that's for off-court stuff. So maybe I'll go and just see what the crowd's like. I don't know who's going to get booed. the loudest.
Should be fun.
Michigan State, Kansas State will be an awesome game.
Yeah.
I think Tyson Walker's from New York too, by the way.
Isn't his
and Marquise Noel's from New York.
One of their ads is just like Mr. New York City.
Yeah, that's Noel. I think that's his deal. I think Jake told us that.
I said this to you off camera, but there would have been scenes had Fairleigh Dickinson made the tournament and got a game in MSG. Like all the old New Jersey basketball families would have all of a sudden been empty. It happened. St. Peter's played in Philly last year.
Oh, and people
that
showed
stadium
out for
was pretty full for that. Like Rutgers fans, Seton Hall fans would have come together around the Jersey school.
You would cheer for the Jersey school?
I have nothing against that. I mean, even Princeton, like they're not playing in New York.
I think that would happen. I'm trying to think of like my own.
Princeton's the original college football rivalry with Rutgers, but I could put the orange on for the hometown team. I grew up around there.
Yeah, I would do the same. I think if I was. I'm trying to think of like. I grew up an Indiana fan, and like if Indiana State.
Yeah,
I mean Butler did when Butler did it in 2010 and 2011, went to the title game. There were a lot of IU fans that were. I think 2010 more so, because 2010 was, it was weird. There was a moment in time where like IU people and Purdue people, Notre Dame people were like cheering for Butler, and then suddenly like the monster got too big, and they were like, all right, get out of our face, like because Butler fans started being like, we're better than you on it. Like Notre Dame's when the last time you played for a national. Purdue, you haven't made a Final Four since 1980, and everyone's like, all right, hold on, shut up.
Indiana's got to be up there, though, as far as, like, state pride states go, I think. From what I've experienced. It's like Ohio, New Jersey.
Yeah, it's up there with basketball for sure, sure. Yeah, basketball stuff.
Indiana people love being from Indiana.
Yeah. Like if you started shitting on Purdue, Indiana fans would be laughing and nodding along. And then if one of your bullet points was like, because they're a school from Indiana and everyone knows they can't play ball, like Indiana fans would like pull out their knives and start, they lose their minds. So yeah, but that's cool that New Jersey would do that too. That's cool.
I don't know if Princeton would have the same effect, but something like
I don't know. Princeton does nothing for me. I mean,
it's a great town.
I'm sure. Yeah,
Hoagie Haven, one of the best sandwich spots in the country.
Princeton does nothing for me as a Cinderella. I mean, like that's not.
I don't think anybody is like really getting.
And I stand by what I told John. If Princeton as a school decided today that their number one objective as a school is to win an NCAA basketball Division I championship, it's only a matter of time.
It's all about the money.
It's all about the money.
It's the NIT.
They just become the Live Tour, the Saudi investment fund of college. They're just like, we will pay Bill Self or whoever else they think is the best coach.
They have
enough money. $25 million a year to coach our team.
Yeah, they can pay every player that much money too.
We can pay every player.
They have plenty of money. Like they're literally buried. There's money in the ground in Princeton. It's crazy.
But no, I mean, I guess I'll. I'm not gonna root for them. I'm not even gonna. I don't think they're villains, but like I don't. It doesn't. And what Jake said when he was on the show that like we've seen the Princeton story before. Like not to the Princeton. They never made an Elite Eight, right? I don't think they have.
I was about to ask. What's the furthest an Ivy League's ever gone?
That's a great question. I can't imagine. Well, let's look it up. Ivy League.
I wonder.
NCAA
like
tournament history.
60 years ago or something.
Best Ivy League performances in March Madness. Here we go. 2010 Cornell. We all remember that. Princeton in 26. I think it might be Sweet 16. Why? How they're making me read an article? This is disgusting. Well, how can you not just list this? Dartmouth with the 4. Oh, Dartmouth reached the Dartmouth went to 4 straight NCAA tournaments from 1941 to 44, reaching the championship game twice, but losing both times.
How many teams were in the tournament in the 40s?
Yeah, like 4 probably.
Yeah.
Of the 8 teams currently in the Ivy League, 6 have made the modern NCAA tournament: Brown, Cornell, Harvard, Penn, Princeton, and Yale. So I don't think
no modern Final Fours.
No modern Final Fours. Yeah. So, but Princeton does nothing for me.
No.
Anything else? Any shout outs?
We didn't mention it after the interview. Shout out to Jon Rothstein for having sex. Congrats.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. It could be a. No, I don't mean to. I didn't even mean like it was someone else's baby. I just meant like. Never mind. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for even introducing that idea. I was just trying to think of a way it couldn't be his, but I realize that there's no way. I'm a moron. I was trying to think of a way to make a joke that it's not his without insinuating something heinous, and then I landed on just being a very terrible friend, and so I'm sorry, John.
And here we go.
Yeah, that's what he said before. Do you think he's gonna say that before the baby comes? His wife starts entering labor, and he just cracks his knuckles, and he's like, breaking in all caps.
Yeah, per sources,
my wife has entered labor, and then it's a Joker gif. Yeah. And here we go. I want to shout out Nick Saban for calling out Nate Oates. I forget who the Alabama football player, what his name was that he's suspending, but Saban doing the press conference where he said there's no such thing as wrong place, wrong time. Hilarious. That was a shot at Oates, was it not? Because I've seen people try to say it wasn't. It was just a coincidence, but there's no way.
There's weird drama between basketball coaches and football coaches at a couple of these schools.
I was talking to Rico about it though, because he goes, do you think that, Rico loves Nate Oates, and he's like, do you think Saban's feeling the heat that he hasn't won a title in a couple of years, and all of a sudden I was like, okay, first of all, no. There's no way that Nick Saban feels the heat from anybody on anything. What he's feeling and why there's beef between football and basketball coaches, I think, is that he's probably pissed that Nate Oates just brought undue attention to Alabama.
The brand.
And it's the same deal. I heard the LSU people I know, when I would ask them about Will Wade and like, is Will Wade going to get fired? And, when he was going through all of his shit with the NCAA, they said everyone to a man just kept saying like his biggest, the reason that LSU might move on from Will Wade, and eventually they did, is they care less about like the violations per like whatever. They care that he got caught. They care that basically Will Wade is now inviting a bunch of NCAA investigators to sniff around the LSU athletic department. And that pisses off the football team, obviously. So I feel like that's what's at play with football and basketball coaches is like, why are you... Calipari and Mark Stoops got into it. And that was more like there's a finite amount of money and they want, and Stoops wants the investment in the football team, and Cal was like, what about me?
Right. It's a football school versus a basketball school argument.
Yeah. But I think that's what's going on with Nick Saban is he's like, I don't care if you like if you win 10 national titles in a row, I'm not going to feel threatened with my throne. I just don't like who the hell are you bringing all these reporters to our campus, and all these people are talking shit about Alabama and that there's a cultural problem in our athletic departments, and I think he's pissed off about that, and rightfully so if I was him. I don't know.
No Alabama football players have ever done anything wrong.
No. Heavens no. Absolutely not. No, it was a great opportunity for Saban to like pretend like he handles everything perfectly every single time, But that's what it is. It really is. Like I identify. He's like, I'm allowed to bring the heat, but like you're not. So sit down over there and please don't do that. So
Jeff Goodman and Dave are going back and forth on Twitter about Ed Cooley.
Why? What happened?
Goodman tweeted, just FYI, Ed Cooley did not leave Georgetown for the money. Sure, he's making more with the Hoyas, but the average is about $5 million per year per source. 7 years at $35 million at Georgetown. Providence was paying him around $4.5 million per year. Dave said, so then why is he leaving? Just to stab everybody in the back and spare me the Fanta speech about being popular in Providence, which is arguably the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Goodman said, stab everybody in the back? What the hell are you talking about? The guy was there for 12 years and left for a better job. Just because they have been awful lately doesn't mean Georgetown can't go to Final Fours again. Ewing was the wrong hire. Dave said, let me clarify it for you, moron.
Oh, God.
1, said Providence was a dream job last weekend. Signed 2 lifetime contracts for more money. 2, put his house on the market in the middle of the season. He knew he was leaving. 3, recruited for Georgetown while being paid by Providence. 4, first Big East coach to jump conference rival ever.
Did Dave just get on a message board and copy and paste?
I think he's getting a lot of like tweets in his replies from Providence fans because we have a better footprint there than Georgetown.
Yeah.
But shout out to Goodman for getting in the mud. I didn't take him as a...
I see two men motivated by their self-interest in that argument.
We put out Ed Cooley clown nose shirts, which I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if you know the lore with the Goodell clown nose. We don't clown nose often. Like, you can't just get a clown nose shirt made here. It has to be a very specific thing that like Dave signs off.
This
on.
man was on our bracket show. Ed Cooley was. He came. Oh no, that's gonna break Jake's heart. I'm indifferent to the Ed Cooley. I think. I mean, obviously, I joked about it with Rothstein that as a guy who's sitting in this chair because I made a similar move where like I took more money and wanted to move to a new city and yada yada yada, and you know, some people felt some type of way about it. Like I understand the hypocrisy if I was to criticize Ed Cooley, but also like I do understand why Providence fans would be upset, because why would you not? I mean, that's what. It's literally, you're literally called a fanatic. Like, that's what fan is short for. Is like you just get. That's how everyone would be, of course. I think it's the day that we arrive at college sports where like fan bases lose the coach that they love, and they're just like, oh, okay, yeah, good for you, happy for your family,
especially to a team that you play.
Yeah,
like,
the day that happens is the day like college sports are dead forever.
Yes.
Like we need, you know, so you want people to care about these. It's okay to care about things. So I don't have a problem with that. Now, like how you handle it and how you. If he comes back and you're yelling shit at him that's heinous and attacking his family and throwing shit at it, like, yeah, that's bad. Don't do that. But if you boo the fuck out of this man and cheer for him to lose every single game he coaches, I think that's fair play.
If Peichel got poached by Purdue or something, I would be devastated and then furious. Like, it would be... Of course.
The conference rival is a tough look, too. Yeah. Conference rival's tough. And if you're Cooley, he had to know that the heat was coming for that. And he's probably fine with it. I mean, you know, if Big John's one of your mentors and that's Georgetown is a brand that, I mean, Big John is obviously the godfather of black college basketball coaches, and you know, like that brand probably means more to black coaches than to anyone else. And Ed Cooley is certainly one of the most prominent black coaches we have in the sport. And, you know, like it might, as you look at it, it's not a one-to-one comparison. When you look at like Georgetown versus other programs, like to him, I'm sure it carries a ton more weight than other programs do, or that Georgetown does to a guy like you or I, as we look at it, you know? So I understand all of it. Dave and Goodman is just very obviously Cooley's mouthpiece. And Dave is just trying to sell shirts. That's my final ruling on that beef. But I think both people are right, and both like I don't know. I'm just gonna ride the middle on this one and just say like, yeah, do what's best for you, do what's best for your family, but also don't be surprised that you're gonna catch heat for this, especially when you preach family and loyalty and all that sort of thing to Providence people. So I don't know.
What's your opinion on Tobin Anderson jumping? I know a lot of people, not a lot, but there are people online that seem mad about it, that he's been there for less than a year. And
my opinion is John should have broke that news on my show. That's my opinion. That's the only opinion I have. No, I think that's inevitable. When you be like, it's understood. If you're one of those small, if you're an FDU person and you're mad about that, like what this man did for your school and your program will far outweigh, you know, him stabbing you in the back if you feel that way, which I don't think anybody would. But yeah, I don't have a problem with that at all. I don't know how he handled that one though. So if there's a story that I don't know about that he, you know, swindled them somehow or promised them, yeah, I don't. But assuming it's just that you know, the season ended and then Iona approached him and now he took the job and that's all the story is. I don't have a problem with it. That's fine. That's how it works.
Also, I don't think there's FDU people to get mad. So
that might be it too.
Yeah.
But like if you're an FDU fan and you're a diehard and you are someone that loves FDU in the way you and I love our
right.
I don't think you're sitting here today saying screw this guy. I think you're saying thank you to this man for giving me the most fun experience I've ever had as a basketball fan.
It's not like you were going to become some sort of perennial powerhouse or something.
Yeah. But. So and that's part of the. That's part of how it works. Is you pull off the big upset. The coach is leaving. That's like the first thing that I don't know.
It's the same story last year. Everybody knew Shaheen was gone.
Yeah.
Everybody knew he was going to Seton Hall.
Yeah.
Like pretty much instantly.
Immediately.
Yeah. It's like, oh, he won one game. It's like, oh, I guess he's coaching Seton Hall next year.
I want to win. I want to be I want to be a basketball coach so bad. Just win 1 or 2 games in the tournament and get rich. That's my goal. That's why I wanted the Chicago State job. I just thought, like, here's my move. I would cheat my balls off. I want to get hired by a small school. I want to cheat my balls off, which wouldn't be as easy now that NIL is a thing. But my plan like 5 years ago was go to like Chicago State, pay all my players to build like a super team, and then just like win the conference and get like a 15 or a 16 seed, whatever. And then all we have to do is win one game at that point. And if you win one game, I'm now going to get a high major offer where I'm going to get signed for $3 million a year and 6-year contract or something. Get fired from that job after 2 years, get paid out my full contract, and that's it. I'm done. And I retire. And that was my like 4 or 5 year plan that I had. There's still might be. There's still time. That's what I want to do. I want to be a fired high major basketball coach. I want it so bad.
I could get you in with some of the D3 Jersey schools if you need a link in.
There we go.
Montclair State, Rowan.
Anything else? What game are you most excited about?
Probably. I mean, UCLA and Gonzaga is
probably
the obvious answer, just from a matchup, like just from a brand standpoint, and
yeah,
there's history built into that.
I'm so mad the West Regional is awesome, dude.
Yeah.
That pisses me off. I'm so jealous of all those. I'm just very petty, TJ, as it turns out. Like I don't like that so many of my friends who cover the sport made plans to go to Vegas, and now they're going to be rewarded for those plans. And I have to watch Florida Atlantic, Tennessee. Pisses me off. I want to be watching Arkansas, UConn, and Gonzaga, UCLA. All right, that's the show, everybody. Enjoy the Sweet 16. We're going to do a show Thursday night. Jake will probably join us for that. People love Jake. I love that people love Jake.
You guys do very well together.
Yeah, we're fun. It's sometimes when we're talking, I want him to be less like him, and then I catch myself and I'm like, why would I want that?
Yeah, you balance out his nerd enough.
Yeah, it's great. It's a great counterbalance. I think Jake will be joining us Thursday night after those games for Friday's show, and we will have been at the Garden. So those games, the East and the West games, will be Thursday. So we're going to go over to the Garden, watch those games, and try to watch the West ones on our laptop, I guess. And then we'll do a show Thursday night after those games, and see you guys Friday.